Pi Day was 2 days ago, but today's much cooler.
Yeah, the time of this recording, it is March 16th, day before St. Patrick's Day. But most importantly, it's 3/16 day. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. What?
I don't drink like Stone Cold. I drink diligently.
Dude, I love the way Will Sasso does like the hands perfectly as he does the Stone Cold stuff. Like he's so good at it, man. He also Dan,
Dear Diary.
You might have known Dear Diary. Dan, you might know this, but Will Sasso was actually he played a fake Stone Cold for a little storyline run there.
Okay.
I think it might have just been one episode.
I think it was, but he has come back to WWE at least one more time or a time before that to do other things.
You mean like in wrestling?
He showed up in the ring as a fake Stone Cold
on SmackDown.
And then who was it? Chris Jericho? Someone brought him out as a fake Stone Cold.
Okay.
And then the real Stone Cold. It was kind of like the Sting gimmick, but it was funnier.
Sure.
Like the Sting gimmick it worked fine for the time, but like the Stone Cold one holds up to me better because there was an element of humor to it.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
two of them talking to each other. And then Will thinking that Stone Cold was giving him a beer, like for real, like we're gonna drink together for real.
Yeah.
And of course he gives him the stunner. It's just great. Of
course, absolutely.
I love when Sasso tells a story and he does an impression of Stone Cold as he's telling the story, where he's like, "And then I'm just gonna give you a stunner, bam, shoot, and then we're out of there. Maybe 15 tops, we're out." Like he's just doing an impression. It's so great.
He can do it, so why not do it?
Yeah, exactly. Why just say, and then Austin says this? Like, why do that?
And then he gave me the Stone Cold stunner.
And I think Sasso said that he tried to take the stunner the way The Rock does, where he flips over.
Sure. Yes.
He just doesn't have that same body type.
No. So when you know that and watch it back, it's even funnier.
Now I'm gonna have to see it again. Tries to do the flop.
The flop is
Pat McAfee did a pretty good Stone Cold or stunner reaction too. Even with I think he had beer coming out too. I don't know. He did something.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, Shane did that too, where Shane used to take Shane. He just like spit it out.
I put that in the montage actually when I did Derek's thing. That was in the montage when he stunned Shane. Yeah.
Shane getting the stunner with the beer shooting out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude! Stone Cold still is the best, and I'm hoping because The Rock is back and he's a bad guy right now, and it's WrestleMania season, and it's the 40th WrestleMania.
You think Stone Cold's going to make an appearance at WrestleMania?
I'm wondering if they're going to do an Avengers Endgame type of ending.
Jeff,
and bring back all of the Rock's
at WrestleMania. The whole building might collapse.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
I mean, seriously, because the whole storyline is like Roman Reigns has built this whole stable of his family that has just been wreaking havoc for years.
The old guys.
He's kept the title, and The Rock is part of that stable because they're both family members, tribal family members. So like, there's a stable there. There's a reason to make other people come out and help and save the day and make sure the good guy wins the title at the end of WrestleMania or whatever. Sure. So I mean, storyline, there's reasons there. And I just want to see The Rock take one last stunner. Just one more. I just want his eyes to bulge out the way it does whenever he hears the glass shatter. Yeah. I want to see the whole nine, like the whole nine.
But realistically, though, Stone Cold's knees are effed up. Just effed up. So, like...
Yeah, no, he's not as nimble, but, like, he can still... He did a match, like, 3 years ago. And
did he? Okay.
Yeah. The full thing's on YouTube, I think.
Okay.
It's really entertaining. He did it in Dallas. It was so much fun. But it was the biggest surprise was he took a suplex outside the ring on like concrete, and I was like, "Whoa, he could do that!" Like I thought
do that,
it was going to be the safest match on the planet, and he ended up being fine, and he was very happy with it.
Okay,
but I'm just saying, just come out and stun The Rock, and that's it. Just leave.
That would be
I really don't care about anything else.
Like the turning point of the main event match, Stone Cold's glass shattering would just be so epic.
The place would go. But they would just be unruly. It would.
You know what? Screw that.
And it's Philadelphia, so they would lose their minds. Like,
you want him to stun just The Rock. I want him to do that whole family.
Stun everybody.
Yes. Like that one time. Remember that
Paul
one time
Heyman too? While we're at it,
he stunned like the whole McMahon family.
Yeah, it was it was literally like 20, 30 wrestlers. He just came in and stunned all of them. Like, it was amazing. I loved it. It doesn't make any sense, but
it doesn't. No.
That's one of the moves in wrestling that was just held in such high esteem, and like everyone kind of was like, "We're gonna make sure that this move always hits. We're always gonna sell it." And it worked.
And it still works now. Kevin Owens is the one that kind of like inherited the stunner as a finisher since then. Because, that's kind of how it works. Like if a finisher disappears, somebody eventually is going to pick up the mantle and keep doing it. So like he's the new guy, and the way that people are taking it, there are some really funny versions of it too. And if you're familiar with Randy Orton, and his finisher is a stunner adjacent.
It's like Diamond Cutter.
It's a cutter basically, but it kind of Diamond Cutter has more setup. This one just grabs their necks.
He'll grab him midair and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the last night, Kevin Owens did a stunner on somebody. He popped up, and as he's in midair, Randy Orton caught him and gave him an RKO.
Dude, the timing and athleticism to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
He's still that. Randy Orton's like one of the oldest guys wrestling still full time, and he's still got it. Like,
they're in fantastic shape. So
yeah.
And for him, he was like, "Oh, my career's done because my finisher wrecked my back after years and years of doing it." Understandable. Totally. But then he had some sort of procedure done, steroids, and he's way better.
Procedure.
Super soldier serum. Super
soldier serum. Develop a Hydra. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. He's fine. Don't worry about it.
He's fine.
Yeah. Wrestling is so bad, guys. It's so
wrestling
bad.
Is it's some of my favorite memories. We've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it again. It's just super fun. I love memories of watching wrestling. But all right, we got to start this episode 211. I didn't have a fun one this time. Like Epi 210 last time was a good time, right?
I wish it was 316. What a shame.
Just change it. Like no one.
Oh hell yeah! And then we just never do 316. Like,
episode 316. Everybody.
Yeah.
Here we are.
When we get to 316, we just skip over. Go from 315 to 316.
Have people ever skipped episode numbers? Just assign random episode numbers and just.
I mean, I know it's happened by accident because I've listened to podcasts where they've said the next week, "I'm sorry, we got the number wrong." A lot of you noticed and were very upset. So I know it's happened, but by mistake.
Like next week it's 1,324 or something. Like you're like, what?
How many episodes? Don't worry about it.
We did a 5-year time jump, and here we are.
Speaking of wrestling, it's kind of like Goldberg's win streak, where like they're like, how did he fight 30 matches in the last 3 weeks? Like all of a sudden 50? No, like okay, all right.
I remember when they kept counting. I'm like, are they counting house shows or not?
Yeah,
because the numbers spiked.
Are they counting when he? Yeah. Is he fighting his family at home? Is that counting now?
Did he spear a guy in the street?
He's sleep fighting like Ron Swanson.
He's sleep fighting.
Yeah, sleep fighting.
Absolutely, he is. All right, so 211. My name's Tim. I'm here with Dan. Welcome, my friend. And Jeff is here with the finger guns too. All right. That's a lot of
hell yeah. Oh hell
yeah. Hey, this is I misspoke last week. I said last week was a little slow. There actually were a couple of games we're talking about, and we did talk about.
Oh man, this one was worse, way worse.
Is slow. I was even looking at like, let me find some deep cut games that are out. Something like super indie and surprise, and there's just hardly anything. I'm not saying there's nothing. There's a couple of interesting titles out there, including a very well-known collection of games that did not launch well with Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection.
That's a shame. But
there's a new Contra game out, which is getting decent reviews. There's this game out called IB, which has a cool look to it. I know it's a dumb name.
I've heard of that.
There's a game called Death of a Wish, which I think the style of this game is awesome, even though it's not a looker, but when you see it in action, it's just, I don't know. I think the style of this is really creative for Death of a Wish. Chinese Empire is what it sounds like. It's a city builder in China. Crown Wars: The Black Prince. I talked about this before. How it was I think it was in the Xbox showcase or something. I don't know. And then there's a game called High Water, which Jeff, I believe, purchased. Not sure if you played it.
Did not touch it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you do, we'll talk about High Water. That's a cool looking adventure game. This post-apocalyptic riding around in a boat with your buddies. Adventure. It looks like an adventure game where
it's more of a narrative adventure, and I don't think there's any survival elements.
Some exploring happening, but not no deep systems from what it looks like at a glance.
That's cool.
Death of a Wish. You're looking at that one?
Yeah. That looks cool.
It's very stylish. It's gonna rub some people the wrong way, but I just think they definitely made a choice and really jumped into it. And then this game called Nevermorn that looks pretty cool, but there's so many games like that. It's gonna disappear in the pile of games that have weird titles like that. Nevermorn. So anyway, that's all I could find. I'm sure there's other ones. I did see that there was some game that came out. I'm not sure if it's just 1.0 after being early access or what, but it was called Slovenia. So it's like a Castlevania type game. Obviously, it's got Metroidvania vibes. Doesn't have the best of reviews, but the art style at first I thought, oh, this is kind of cool, and then as I watched the animation, like in the video, I was like, I actually don't really like this too much. It's a little
stiff.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like the designs are very clean, but then the way they're moving on screen doesn't look quite right. I don't know. Something about it just didn't really click for me. So anyway, that's a summary of the new stuff. And I do think it's worth at least calling out that the Star Wars Battlefront collection just has yet again another epically bad launch for a highly anticipated game. Now, it's one thing to have a bad launch because you've got so many people that you never could have anticipated it, and you're dealing with things. We talked about Pal World, we talked about Helldivers 2, and they're making adjustments because their game is a hit. That's different. Yeah. According to, and I don't know if this is true, according to some players in some of the boards, some of the chats that I saw, they featured a maximum of 3 PC servers to accommodate the entire community, which meant on launch night, only 192 people at a time were able to play. I don't know if that's true, but people were like tracking the numbers to see who was logged in and able to play. And I guess it was capped at like less than 200 people at various times.
Damn.
So I don't know what was happening. There were only over 20,000 people trying to play, and a vast majority of them did not get in. So Aspire, the development team who put out this collection, has posted an update saying we know there's problems and we're working on them. But keep in mind, Aspire owned by Embracer, and they don't embrace things. So
yeah, they're not very embracey at all. Like the the only thing they embrace is sucking.
They really do embrace that. To Kyle's point, he made this point to us. This is a pretty good sign of why they're not letting this Aspire team finish the Coder remake, or at least I'm pretty sure that's the news that came out. Maybe it might have been rumors that Aspire is not really handling that Knights of the Old Republic remake. And there's a little bit of a relief that they're not, because seeing how this is collapsing, it's like, dude.
I didn't realize Aspire did this at all. So
yeah.
Wow. That's embarrassing.
Yep. And this is kind of jumping the gun into a headline, but it is interesting because Embracer did sell off Saber Interactive, but they're keeping Aspire, which was normally part of that umbrella. They're keeping Aspire, but they're going to have a joint. This is very confusing when it comes to Coder, especially. It's going to go with Saber technically, but I guess the team at Embracer or Aspire or someone is still going to be co-developing it, co-publishing it together. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they're still holding on to the license somehow with the development of it. I don't know exactly what's going on. Dude, Embracer has made a hot mess out of everything they've touched.
There's weird shit going on over there.
It's a problem. So anyway, but yeah, they did sell off Saber, and Sabre is now sold. And they did confirm that these games are still in development. These 3, Warhammer 40K, Space Marine 2, still on target, still being worked on, fine-tuned, all that stuff.
Good.
John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, which I feel like we saw a quick trailer for that a while back, but
yes, we did. But I thought that was like a VR thing. Yeah,
might have been a VR thing.
But yeah, it was definitely like a pulpy 80s type of spoof action game or something.
That's
something very silly. Yeah.
And then that Jurassic Park survival game, all still being worked on.
Oh yeah.
Seen trailers for those.
So they took their games with them. That's good.
Sabre did, yeah. Sabre did. Sorry.
Sabre.
So Kodor is going to be a jointly held asset between the two companies, which seems like nothing could go wrong there.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. There's a lot of comparisons you could make with divorces. Like, no, we're just going to get along. We'll co-parent this thing. It's like, this is going to go really poorly. Anyway, it's probably going to be great. Sorry, those of you listening, you probably grew up in a home where it went great, but it can get really ugly. I'm curious, especially with Embracer. They've been so bad at handling.
They've been not embracing things.
I mean, they've been real, just flat out bad at managing all this stuff,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, hey, let's talk about 2 major games that I know that between the 3 of us, we're spending most of our time playing. Just updated thoughts, anything new, keeping it, of course, spoiler free. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's get an update on this one.
Did you already touch on Contra Operation Galuga?
Just the fact that it's out.
Oh, because I played the demo and it's fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
I forgot to chime in when you said that.
I think it's getting like 7s. across the board, like maybe
it's worthy of that. It's very worthy of that. Like it's because some 7s for me are like, I can see the fun here, but I'm not patient enough for it, and that's exactly what this kind of game is.
Yeah.
You just sign up for it. I mean, much like any other Contra, sign up for it to get your ass kicked, and you have to kind of figure out how to manage, getting up and down and jumping and like what enemies do you want to actually fight on what levels and stuff like that. It's Contra, so I mean,
right.
Maybe people that are huge, big fans of Contra, bigger than I am, will like it. I don't know. I don't know, but I'm not buying it. That's
I ain't buying it. I ain't buying it.
I do think when a series like this gets in the right hands, you can have a home run. I'm talking like people can't stop playing a Game of the Year contender, like a Prince of Persia style resurrection of a franchise. I don't think Contra's hit it yet. They've tried a few different things over the last decade plus, trying to figure out what do we do with this IP that has a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people, especially if you grew up in the arcade, era. So I just don't think they've hit it quite yet. This doesn't sound like it's a disaster by any stretch. It just doesn't sound like it is the thing that makes everyone go,
I really thought it was going to be worse. I'll be honest. I went in with low expectations. It was actually more fun than I thought, but it was like, the first time you die, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's this kind of game. You're supposed to die.
Kind of fun with friends, right? It's a co-op game.
Yeah, so definitely, it's a co-op game for sure.
Well, I loved seeing stuff like Battletoads and Ninja Turtles get just really treated with love, developed by people who loved those IPs and those old games, and they translated them to modern games really well. So,
I'm looking at screenshots of this, and like, so using say TMNT as an example, like visually, like I think there's something there that harkens back to the classic because they did keep it pixelated, but it's like sharper and nicer.
Yeah, it is.
And it's really fun. And they did add some stuff to the gameplay just to like enough, like a little bit of enough to kind of make it like, oh, there is a little bit extra here. I don't know if there is in this Contra, but I'm looking at it visually and it's kind of like, I don't know, like they're trying to go with like sort of a 3D thing and it just doesn't look amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know how it looks in action, but
it doesn't look that smooth.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that bad by any stretch. But I get the scores. I understand the scores at this point.
Yeah.
Is Contra? I'm having a brain fart. Is that a Konami IP?
Yes.
Yeah.
Still, like they still own it. They publish this.
Yes. Yeah. Still their baby.
Konami seems to not let go of their stuff, even though they probably should, because they're terrible and they should rot in hell. So.
Konami should be bought by Embracer, so they can be thrown in the garbage.
Dude, actually, no, because then like Metal Gear and stuff could possibly die forever.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So
no, I want them to I still want them to farm out their IP. We talked about this a lot. But, as the Aiden Chronicles game gets ready to hit, and I'm hearing nothing but amazing things about that next month. It'd be great if that team were able to really take over so it could end for real. But maybe they don't need it now. If this game is
true.
Then they don't need some other IP. They can just do this. But
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, okay. So let's talk Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I know you guys have made a lot more progress in it. I have not. I'm still just in early phases, mid phases of Chapter 3. I'm very early on. I haven't played it a ton, but man, this game is beautiful and I do love it. Just haven't had time to play the PS5.
I don't know. Sounds like you hate it. I'm pretty sure you hate it.
Yeah, I do hate it.
I mean, to be fair, the game's awful. So
that's actually what the segment's called. It's Tim hates this game, and we're going to talk about something. No,
try hard, Tim.
You could say you perhaps skimmed it. So
this was the old
Tim skim. Yep, exactly.
I think I've played it for like 9 hours, so I feel like, hey, I've experienced a good chunk of this game. And I look at the number of chapters I'm through and where I am. I'm like, holy crap! Like, uh-oh.
There's a long way to go, especially every time you end up in a new region at the end of a lot of the chapters, and you're like, there's another region with more towers? I don't have time for this.
It's not the tower.
And my voice will go up that octave. Yes, it will.
Yes, it definitely does for me. But as soon as I tell myself I don't have time for this, I look at my save file and I'm like, 40 hours? Oh, what am I talking about? Like, these games are supposed to be long. It's not even that long. Like I'm at chapter 10, still in the beginning of chapter 10. I didn't make a lot of progress since last week. I think last week I was in chapter 8. Life happens. And there was a crap ton of TV shows that came out. Anyway, I got to chapter 10 and like it's I want to say 6. Is it the 6th area or the 5th area? I lost count at that point. I'm like, there's a lot of freaking areas.
Like as far as like big main areas,
like you have Grasslands, Junon.
The 5th.
Okay, so it's after Gungaga. Yeah, it's the 5th. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you're considering Costa del Sol area plus the desert and all, well, then this Gungaga. Yeah, I don't know. It's like so maybe it is 6th then.
I felt like the area before Gungaga, which I'm forgetting the name of now, the one that has the beach on it, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
That I felt like that was the biggest area, and then I got to Gungaga, which is just fun to say. Oh my god! And then, dude, there's like cave. It felt like Minecraft at points where I'm like, there's caves, and then you can go on top of whatever the cave is covering, and like,
it's absurd.
Yeah, there's a lot of jumping between areas and stuff with your chocobo, which is really, really fun. But yeah, it is very massive, and it feels overwhelming when, as an educated gamer, you're looking at what's on the horizon and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to finish this. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. But I feel like even with stuff like Dragon's Dogma 2 coming out and Rise of the Ronin, which I may end up liking, I don't know. I keep seeing...
Hard to say.
It keeps seeing weird mixed things about it.
We'll know next week.
It's so bizarre, the takes I'm seeing on this game.
Bizarre.
I still feel like I might end up just being like, whatever, I'll just keep playing Rebirth. So, I mean, I'm bitching about nothing probably. So.
I would think in Chapter 10 that you're not only hooked by the gameplay. We've talked a lot about the gameplay that we
there's
love.
A rhythm. You're rhythm by them.
But without spoiling anything, how are you digging the overall narrative and character development? Like, does that part have you hooked as well?
There's a moment at I don't know if it was Chapter 9 or not, because sometimes a big story moment happens and then I go do more open world stuff again.
Okay.
So I get lost in what chapter.
Was it at a reactor?
Yeah, there was a reactor, and then there was some stuff underwater that happened, and I was like, "Whoa!" Yep.
So that was like I literally just did that actually. So it's like the middle of Chapter 9, basically.
Okay, so yeah, because after that, I did way more stuff in the open world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the game pretty much alludes to the fact that you should not do open world stuff. When you look at the level, and it's like 2 levels above where I am, I'm like, oh, I need to do the main story first, and then go do the open world stuff. So it kind of like tells you, like in a roundabout way, focus on the story for this one part, and we'll let you back out on the map. You know.
Okay. Did they let you go back to old areas yet, where you guys are?
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you get different modes of transportation each time you go to a new place.
So anytime, like right now, if you wanted to, you can fire it up, and you can go back to Grasslands to wrap up some open stuff if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Grasslands Junon, I finished completely. There was something I did not finish. I don't remember what it was though. In the 3rd area, the 4th area, I straight up said, "Screw them." Some of the mini games just pissed me off. So I said, "I'm not going to catch those stupid Moogle things anymore. I'm not doing it." Sorry.
Got it, Jeff.
And then there's another mini mission in Gungaga where it's a side quest where it's like you need to do all of these, hit all of these benchmarks in your combat, and every time it tells you I need to pressure an enemy, basically. And every time I try, enemies are dead. I'm like, what the? Like, there's such easy enemies.
I killed the little things I was supposed to hunt too quickly. I was like, I didn't have time to pressure any of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's one that's a side quest specifically where if you don't do all 3 things, you can't move on in the side quest.
You're talking about the one where you're training that dude, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to do all those.
Can you just like unequip your sword and just punch or something? Like what can you do?
I don't know. Can
you pick up a stick instead of your sword?
My main, I'm in the rhythm, even though I should be switching it up more. I'm definitely in a rhythm with Tifa. The main 3, Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud. And all 3 of them have a very good ability to pressure enemies, but it's just some of them stagger so quickly that I kill them immediately. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do here, man. I'm like, I'm freaking annihilating these guys.
I don't know if, because I mean, I had replayed it recently. I replayed Remake right before, and then the Yuffie DLC. But I don't remember with the enemies. So like when you assess them, it gives you like their weaknesses and stuff, right?
Oh, is it a weakness oriented thing, maybe?
Well, so when you assess an enemy in Rebirth, you get like you get all the stuff on the right that shows like if they're weak, say against poison or ice or whatever. Yeah. But then you get like information about the enemy on the left hand side. But in yellow text, it'll actually give you like more like in-depth, like like it's not even that they're necessarily weak again. To pressure them, it's not you just cast ice on them. They have to do like a certain move, and then you have to like overwhelm them with heavy attacks and stuff like that. And I don't remember if that was a thing in Remake. I don't think it was.
Doesn't sound familiar from Remake, but I know what you're talking about with that yellow text. I've used that for a couple of the.
I know like, pressuring enemies has existed at least in the Final Fantasy games that I've played.
Yeah.
That are just more focused on action.
The pressuring exists. The whole pressuring thing existed in Remake, but I from what I remember, it was just
16,
more like,
I think. Yeah,
exactly.
But the rules to pressure them were different. It was a standard stagger meter, I thought, before, of some kind. Maybe I was wrong. I'm wrong, but this one, it seems to be more like, do this and this for this enemy type, and now we'll pressure them.
Yeah. There's more like
it certainly, I think it gets their stagger meter like to fill up way faster when you pressure them, and they feel like they can't get any attacks.
I just basically think that that's cool because it's adding an extra, adding a layer of strategy. Which harkens to the RPG genre, I think, instead of just simply hacking and slashing away and just being like whatever. Like,
and you guys know me, I'm more like a character action type of gamer. So I'm not, the RPG elements kind of miss me sometimes, and that's an example of it where I feel like I'm not getting it, so I just move on and do something else, which is fine. There's plenty to do in the game, but
of course.
Sometimes the mini games get a little frustrating, and I'm like, okay, I just need to move on. I just, it's not required. I could just move on. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I'm the opposite of you, Jeff. I am OCD and cannot move on.
So you're doing everything you can, Dan. Everything on the map, everything you can find.
I'm just like, I feel, because like the thing for me is like, I feel like I'll miss something interesting, like story wise, or like items.
But
like,
you don't feel rushed, right? Like you're enjoying playing this way,
like
right?
that. Yeah, I literally thought to myself earlier today, I'm like, I haven't. So like with open world games, there's definitely that like fatigue that you feel sometimes, or there's that lull of boredom of like, I'm not like there's been a few hours here where nothing. Like I'm just like, what is gonna happen next? Like what is gonna happen? What is gonna happen? But even when I'm doing something that may kind of be like, there was a side quest that I did in Gongaga, the other side quest, Jeff. It's not the one where you're training the guy, where you're looking for some chickens.
Yeah, you're looking for some animals. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god.
And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
God. That whole side quest is just the worst.
So did you finish it though? Did you finish it though?
I did.
But so the payoff is amazing.
It really is.
It's hysterical.
They make the gamer go no, and
it's hysterical.
They give you a great payoff.
But the mechanics of it are painful.
Deliberately painful. Yeah.
Which is kind of honestly, like, unfortunately, a thing that Square is like hit or miss about, are the side quests. But like even with something like that though, I'm still like, this is hilarious and there's interesting things going on.
Yeah.
And it's not like,
the funniest part is like, you're on the heels of something pretty big happening in this, at least in the order that I did it in. You're on the heels of something pretty big happening in the main story, and when somebody asks you for help, Cloud straight up says, "I don't have time," and he accepts it anyway.
I love that.
Yeah, he's like, "No, seriously, we're just passing by. Like, I don't have time for this." Like,
and then somebody else on the team will be like, "Oh, come on," and like, coerce him into being a good person or whatever. But yeah, it is funny when you look at like the scale of everything that you're doing, and you're like, I'm pausing to like collect plants for somebody or whatever. It's not like on par with what you're doing in Remake, which I would say is the stakes were way lower for those side quests overall. But this one feels a little more meaningful. Like I feel like I'm genuinely helping the open world stay better equipped for, the threat against the whole globe, I guess, and whatever.
There's ones that make more sense context-wise within like the world of saving the planet and doing things, or you do something for someone and then they're like, hey, so you helped me get like these ingredients or these items to build this thing. Now you get this thing, which is going to help you on your journey.
The rewards are way better too, especially with the folio stuff, where they just give you a book and somebody gets 10 SP and you're like, well, that's freaking badass. I needed that really bad.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for knowing.
How are you guys liking the folio system now that you've got it probably pretty wide open and pretty dug into at this point?
Yeah.
How are you liking
I'm at like
system?
team level 7, and my weapon levels are not. I don't really switch weapons a lot, so that's on me. I don't really play that way.
But are you liking the system of like how you pick your abilities?
I like the trees. Yeah, it's cool. It's rad, and it feels good when you open it up and it's like you unlocked a new area, and you're like, oh yeah. It's a good feeling.
Oh, when you level up your team, how a new area opens up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or if you level up your weapon level 4, so now you have the ability to buy new things.
Yeah. But it feels like you gain the points for that like slowly, I'm just I want to unlock more, but like it's like very kind of like slow, which is fine because obviously,
and you're not supposed to be able to obviously get everything. It's not that kind of it's that kind of RPG where it's like you got to make your decisions carefully, but you can unspend.
I was gonna say you can reset them anytime, which is great.
Right. Yeah, it's not like Diablo, which is obviously way more involved in the skill tree as you get way in the end game, where you're like moving boards around, and you can
or a lot of games where
you can
respec, but you're gonna have like 3 chances to do that, so you better do it smart. Like it's not that kind of a thing, which I like.
Dumb.
Right, they're more loosey goosey with it, which I kind of like that in the game.
It's a little overwhelming. I'm still early enough though that I don't have any kind of negative thoughts about it. It's just like, dude, I don't know which things I need right now. Like I am so early. Like I still, even though I'm in chapter 3, I feel like I'm early enough in the combat. I'm like, I don't really know which of these things I need, but as soon as I saw that each of them has a reset thing, my stress level went way down. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna pick some random ones and try them out. And
just unspend one point.
When in doubt, I'm just gonna buff some, like give me more health points or give me more whatever. Like, all right, I'll do that for now.
The synergy stuff is great though, and you do want to pay attention to
I love that stuff.
Okay, help me out with this. So I've done the synergy thing. I still don't 100% know how to build up synergy between characters. You just have to like be near them when you're fighting. Do you have to heal them? Like,
what's your abilities? So if you do abilities, if you hit X to slow down, and then you go into ability, and then you see what you have for abilities, there should be like the little icon that has like a notch. It'll be like a filled in like line, which signifies that it fills like all of the. It's filling up the slots to build up to do a synergy like.
But where is this? Is there a synergy meter somewhere that I'm not seeing? Like. Or does it just become available?
I don't know if it's on the HUD or anything. I don't really know if it's on the.
When you hit X, it'll be at the bottom. So like so for example, say you've built up enough synergy with with Cloud and Tifa, and you go down to
a new character, guys. Titus.
It's from Final Fantasy X, to be fair. So I'm just Final Fantasy on the brain.
I
made
Effing Skype.
What happened? Are we good?
Skype refreshed or whatever. It's done it before. Yeah.
But it's still recording.
Still recording. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still good.
Okay.
So you'll see that it's glowing if you filled up the respected like synergy attack. You'll see where it says synergy.
I've seen when it activates, like, oh, I can do synergy now. But that's been part of my kind of like, I think I'm dumb because when I'm playing a game like this, I want to build towards certain moves I know are effective, and I feel right now like I don't have a good strategy to build towards synergy abilities I want to do outside of just generally speaking, doing the moves that have that little symbol you're talking about and hoping that it's enough. I don't know how much more I need. Who needs to do these abilities?
It should show
it's a confusing system, but I think I'm just too early to really get it.
Yeah. So basically what I was trying to get at is when you go into synergy abilities, if it's grayed out, I'm pretty sure on the right side of it, like where it says the name of the synergy ability on the right of it, you'll see where it has like the notches that I was talking about, and they won't be filled in. So you need that many more notches.
So it's just like a battery that's filling up basically.
Yeah, it basically yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. No, overall I do. I feel like I'm just behind because when I did go back to it last week, I think I talked about this already. And I fought that big snake boss in chapter 2. Sorry, slight spoilers, whatever.
Yeah, he's got that weird Nordic name where you're missing some letters there, buddy.
I got demolished by this thing. Like I didn't get wiped. I'm surprised we didn't die. There were several times I was like, oh, there we go. But I used like all my Phoenix Downs, all my potions. I was not ready. I didn't know we were about to do the boss fight. So but I also just felt really stupid. I was just like, I think I stink at this. Like I think I'm not. And so that's a discouraging thing when you're like, I want to be good at it. Like I feel like I was good at Remake, especially by the time I got to the first third of the game. I was like, dude, I'm good at this game. And I was like flying through it, beating bosses. I felt great. I do not feel great in the combat in this game. And I think it's because I took too long of a break. Yeah. So I'm trying not to even bother going back into it until I can like commit. I'm like, this is my game. So I'll talk in a minute about the game that's doing that to me right now. I'm almost done with it. But yeah, so until I can do that, I'm trying not to like bounce back and forth from this one because I think I'm just gonna keep forgetting little pieces of like, how does the combat work again, and then get frustrated and then feel stupid, and that cycles.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that boss, I remember even on easy, I was like spending a lot of potions for that boss fight, and at this point in the game in chapter 10, I'm not really doing that as much for boss fights because I have so many extra things equipped for auto healing, and my party is already doing that for me, and I don't have to worry about it. And I have an ability for Red where instead of doing vengeance, he just heals. Like when his vengeance is charged up, it just heals me. And it heals the whole team, and it's an amazing ability. I literally just equip him to he helps stagger enemies quicker. I literally just equip him just to be like, oh, I'm in a pickle, and I'll just use that ability and switch back to whoever. It's an ace, man. It's great. So like you get it gets easier, it gets more manageable, and you notice you're spending way less, at least in my difficulty. You notice you're spending potions.
That was the case with OG7. As you progress through the game, you're getting more materia, which lets you do all these unique layouts, materia layouts and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's also here. You're getting a lot of that materia that existed in OG here, that they didn't have in Remake. So you're getting to experiment more and stuff like that.
It's true.
Dan, how are you liking how the narrative is unfolding through where you are in the game right now? Without spoiling any details, how are you liking what they're doing so far? Are there a lot of Easter eggs that you're noticing and loving? Like, how's your experience with it?
There's Easter eggs out the wazoo tonight. So I'm like
those
right
are
behind
you. But continue.
Yes, this is chocobo. That's true. So I'm funny enough, Jeff. How many hours did you say you're in? And you're in chapter 10.
Like 39 or something like that.
Jeez, I don't know what I'm doing because I'm 60 hours in and I'm a chapter behind you. I don't know if it's because I'm literally doing everything. Maybe I'm getting too sidetracked, which is fine.
I move on. Like I don't do Queen Split. I'm still frustrated with that game.
Okay.
So I don't do that. And Fort Condor, I dominated, and I prefer that to be my perception of that game. I'm not going back and doing hard mode. I'm not doing hard mode. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, screw
the canon for Jeff is that he is an expert at this game.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's gonna stay. I'd rather keep it that way on the regular difficulty and not do hard mode and be humbled. I just don't want to. I don't need to be humbled any further by the mini games.
No humbling.
By the way, Dan, that's not surprising. I mean, you love to explore and poke the corners of worlds that you're in. Like you played Zelda for what, 500 hours and never got to the end of that game. Like. No surprise at all, man. Like
I play. Yeah, well, so Tears of the Kingdom was like 70 hours, and I've mainly done like just looking.
Have you done any dungeons yet? Like
no.
Okay, well,
no, absolutely none. Just getting hearts and stamina.
I played 3 hours and I did a dungeon. No, I'm kidding.
Jeff's I did. He's at the end.
But that's what I did with Rebirth, though. I literally just was like beefing up my Link with hearts and stamina, and then I just like demolish in that game. Like then I go back in, and that's what happens. So, but that's kind of I guess that's kind of what I'm doing here. I like to explore. I like to look for. I don't want to miss any items. You're finding actual weapons in the environment. Like you see a chest that's glowy purple. You're like, oh, I know that's a weapon. Yeah. For one of my characters.
And they always like time it out perfectly, especially in the narrative where it's like this is a side quest that Yuffie might be a part of mainly, or Barrett, and like so the chest I'm gonna find is gonna be a weapon for them probably.
Right.
I love that. That's really smart how they do that.
Yeah, they pace it out.
I'm gonna want them in my party to see this mission through at least. That's how I work with these. So I love that stuff, and I love sometimes that it's not always a weapon. It's like beneficial. Like sometimes it's like okay, I'm just going to stick with what I'm using because I'm already kind of kicking ass here.
Are you swapping them, like I said, to make sure you're learning?
No, I stayed in my rhythm, dude. I'm just...
But you got to learn the abilities, though. I'm saying you could swap back to what you want, but swap to each weapon and use that ability. Just spam the ability, basically, and then you learn it, and then go right back to the weapon that you want. That's how, and also
that's a lot of work, Dan. That's a lot of work.
Really, it's a lot of you click into the menu, equip, and then equip the other. Sure, but also too, though, as you're going along and getting more weapons, it more or less will be giving you more materia slots too. So there's that to keep in mind as well.
So if you're doing that stuff on top of trying to make sure in every little mini town hub or whatever, you're making sure you're getting every mini game. You're just a thorough gamer. That's all that is. It's not so much. Yeah. Like,
but to me, it's like OCD too, because it's like
this is your favorite game ever, and this is the second installment of an incredible modern remake of it.
Right.
Like,
That's fair.
I would actually be disappointed if you were flying through it. Like, yeah, I just kind of skimmed through the main storyline. Be like,
sure.
Why? What are you doing? What are you in a hurry for?
Yeah, then I'm an actual fake fan. So.
Then you're an actual fake fan. So no, the fact that you're 60 plus hours and you're probably just past halfway of the overall time and story of the game. Maybe close to 2/3.
Yeah, it's 14 chapters, so it's
depending on how long each chapter is, I suppose.
Right, because I'm wondering if the last few ones are extra long. Because I'm like thinking in my head, I'm also trying to think of.
I can definitely say for sure, Cosmo Canyon is like, it's smaller than the last two the regions, but they're not by much. It's still like pretty big. And then I know there's at least because I looked up regions, like I looked up Final Fantasy Rebirth regions, and I know there's 2 more. One for sure sounds like a region proper, much like the other ones where they have towers and stuff, but it doesn't look that big, at least in the map that I looked at. And then the other one is feels like it's more like a story oriented region.
Well, so
and you're not really doing a whole lot. I don't know.
In my head, I'm like, I know what's the order of these things, so that's why I'm like, I'm wondering how long or how big the areas are. Like you're saying, you looked into them. Because I'm trying to like in my head, like, and also based off of chapter 9. So when I asked Jeff, I was like, oh, the reactor. I was trying to like be like, oh, is that what you were referring to? Mm-hmm. Things happen in chapter 9 that are. I mean, like, it's hard to say without, again, being specific. But
we can just say they fill in a lot of gaps. We had a lot of questions.
Well, like, they fill in a
lot of gaps while also making us go, wait, so what? Wait,
what?
Hold on. So yeah, they definitely make you ask more questions.
Well, it's a big like, because in OG7, Jeff, it's more of like you notice that on the world map, you go into it, there is a reactor there, but it's kind of just surrounded by a bunch of it's almost like Midgar. It's surrounded by like rubble and debris, and it's like it's not a huge thing. It's not a huge area. You just kind of go into it. You can there's a summon materia. I'm pretty sure it's Titan, like right in front of the reactor. Scarlet shows up.
That's the one I use for Cloud as a 4-star Titan. He's a badass.
Yeah, Titan is a badass. Scarlet shows up at that reactor in OG7.
Yeah.
Well, there's just like a cutscene where she comes down in a helicopter and she's like looking around or whatever. So like the kind of like referencing that too. So it's not like a huge thing. But in this, it's just so much more involved, and there are things happening, and I'm not trying to be specific, but it's just not what you expect. No. And
it certainly wasn't. I was expecting, like, this is like in the narrative we were getting into the more of the fantasy elements of the game, like where I was
that
like,
wasn't there in OG.
What the hell is happening?
You're not finding all of that out in OG, except for the Zack stuff, because I brought that up before. I think I mentioned. I don't know if that was just when it was you and me, Jeff, or if it was the first discussion of Rebirth. But yeah, in OG7, you're just like you walk into like all those little homes, and then there's Zack's mom and dad's house, and like that comes up. But in this one, like there's just more on top of that wasn't there before.
Yeah,
and I'm like starting to theorize stuff based off of like a certain cutscene, and I'm like, all right, like, and I'm thinking about like also the Advent Children movie in my theory, because I've been thinking of that since Remake, because of like at the end of Advent Children, like there's just certain imagery that's going on, and this has been discussed in theories too, based off of other people, but like connected to like the Whispers, which, obviously those were a thing in Remake. So I don't know, man. It's like, it's insane, because it's like, this is the shit Whispers that I love about.
There's a lot of Whisper stuff in Chapter 9, especially really good stuff. And trying to remember there's a character too from apparently the mobile game that I don't think anybody on this podcast played.
Glenn. I think it was Glenn.
Yeah.
That stuff is weird.
I had to look him up, and I was like,
yeah.
Who's this guy now? Like, it's one of those moments.
I knew of him, but I don't know anything about him. I had to look it up too. I had to be like, all right, so I know his name is Glenn. I know he's from Ever Crisis, which is that whole mobile thing that they released recently, which is supposed to be like a whole compilation of everything. But that was like a prequel story where like young Sephiroth is involved. That's when he was the first.
He's known as the first soldier, right? Like the.
Yeah, the first class soldier. Young Sephiroth with the short hair and all that shit. Like it's like prequel stuff because it takes place in the past.
Like Trunks from Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. R.I.P. to that guy. I'm terrible.
But
it is the whole time. I mean, we're kind of questioning, even having known that background stuff. Like, okay, now I know what he's from, but where's his allegiance lie? Like, I mean, now I'm confused, So
I don't know the mystery there. Yeah, I'm wondering what's even going on there. This is honestly like I was thinking, I was mentioning actually last night, because I streamed last night, started Final Fantasy III, by the way.
Nice.
So, and I was kind of just like talking out loud, and I was like, when they first announced this whole thing, I was like, kind of like, oh, I don't like this, that they're gonna make multiple parts. I was one of those people. I was definitely one of the, like, I don't like this being multiple parts. And pretty quick I changed my mind, because like I was like, whatever, it's fine, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna make the 3 parts more Final Fantasy, that sounds fun. And then they started talking about, like, we'll add some stuff, we'll flesh some things out. I'm like, okay, there's some potential for something really cool. And the fact that
they're doing new things in the story,
yes,
where even diehard fans are like, what is happening? Like,
yes.
Like, that's a cool feeling.
It harkens back to being a kid and playing these originally, because it was like the mystery and like what's going on and theorizing about stuff and trying to piece things together. And that's what's happening here. And it's just so fun. And it's like, I feel like if this really was how the game visually looks, but one for one of the original, people would be not that happy about it.
True.
I feel like people would not. They say that they would be, and that's what people complained about. Why couldn't this have just been a one for one? I feel like, I don't know. I feel like some of those people would have not been that happy.
I'm with you on there. I know there's sections of the internet that are just impossible to please no matter what. Yes. They always find something to complain about. But like, no, man, if it were 1-to-1, even people on this podcast, like, we would be kind of like, yeah, I just wish they kind of took a big swing or whatever. And they're clearly taking a big swing.
Yes.
Like, otherwise it's a waste of resources or whatever.
If you just made it 1-for-1,
it's just prettier. It's just prettier, and that's great that it looks prettier and whatever. But like, yeah, man, I don't know. Again, to me, it's like what I'm feeling with this game reminds me of when I played the original one, and just the fun and the mystery of like learning everything that's new and what's going on. How are these things connected? What the hell is Sephiroth doing? Why is he obsessed with his mom so much? Like, yada yada.
Why is he so pretty now?
Yeah, why is he so pretty? His hair is beautiful. What is his hair regimen?
Fabio locks.
Yeah, what is his hair regimen? What is he doing?
He always has the right amount of makeup applied. Maybe he's born with it.
He is. Maybe he's Sephirothline. But yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, it's just what I'm feeling here reminds me of being a kid again and playing the original, and it's very fun and very exciting.
Awesome. So. Yeah, I love that. When 7 came out, one of the reasons it was such a global phenomenon, there's a lot of reasons, but I think one of them was that it felt like a modern game. Like, no other game was doing this. It felt new. It felt like of the time, and yet also of this fantasy that they were creating. It was all of it together. It was really cool. Now you play it, and of course, because it was made in the 90s, so yeah, there's elements of it. Like, even if you love it, you're like, all right, well, that's a little dated, or that translation's a little like, they modernized all of this. So they brought something that is beloved, and somehow still, I think they showed this game a ton of respect while redoing so much of it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and that is a hard line to stay within. Like, how do we still respect the source material while giving everyone pretty much a brand new experience?
It stresses me out thinking of being in that writer's room, and they're like, no, that's a bridge too far. But then we're abandoning too much source material. And
but the people in the writing room, Jeff, are the people from the original. So that's the fun thing. They know, and it's in their heart, and they just know the story so well, and they love it. And to be honest, though, they technically, even back then, they had to pull punches, because Katase in the original one, there's a scene that happens later on in OG7 where you're parachuting somewhere. I won't say, because it might happen in, this one or the next one. No, it'll probably be the next one. And like, he was like, let's kill everyone except for 3 of the characters. Everyone dies except for the 3 people that you choose as your main party. And Nomura was like, no, we're not doing that. That's insane. Take it easy, Katase. So
what is this, Mass Effect? Get out of here.
Yeah, he's just a lunatic. He was a lunatic. So, I mean, the love is still clearly there. And like, people in the dev team that are younger are they grew up playing OG7. So like the passion is there too, right? They're like now involved in making this new Final Fantasy VII trilogy. So I would imagine it's like a dream,
Yep. Yeah. Well, our journey through this game continues, of course. Dan and Jeff, and I know Kyle, I think is ahead of both of you guys. I think he's gotten more time with it, if I was reading his messages right. Anyway, you guys...
I hope so. I know his schedule has been a little wonky because of work, but yeah.
You guys are probably all in a similar track to finish it. For me, it'll be probably like Final Fantasy 16, where I fell a little behind, and all of a sudden it's going to be the only thing I play, and everything else is going to have to wait. Like, that'll happen. But the reason I haven't been playing it as much, and I can't keep using the TV excuse, I probably had some opportunities I could have played it this week, but I am so obsessed with this Banishers game, Banishers Ghost of New Eden. It truly is like my new Plague Tale / Witcher 3. Like, it's much more ambitious than either of the Plague Tale games were, just in terms of the overall size of it, the story they're telling, and then all the side quests. Plague Tale didn't even try to do side quests in the same way at all. They had little side objectives sometimes, if I remember correctly, but nowhere near like what we've got here. Not only do you have full-on haunting cases from start to finish, where characters you've already met in the main story are involved. Maybe someone that you already met and talked to and worked with in the main mission is now dead, and you have to either banish their ghost. It's crazy, man. Like, the connections are so smart, so good, and the storylines will touch everything from panic and anxiety issues to depression and suicide, drinking problems. Like, we're talking about major human issues that they're hitting. A lot of religious themes, relationship themes of every variety: family, marriage, dating, shouldn't be dating, like whatever, everything in between, like
infidelity
is there. Like, it's all there, and it's all really well done. Now, I'll say what I said last week too. It certainly is not AAA quality with all. I don't have to say any more of this. It's not AAA quality with a lot of its technical stuff, but I am still taking a lot of snapshots because I love the vistas. I think it looks great. Yes, if you look closely at the trees, the leaves and the branches are kind of like one singular. Like, okay, all right,
it's okay. Settle down. All right,
like,
it's okay.
Look at some of the screenshots and you'll see what I mean. Like, okay, they have little clumps of grass that kind of wave in unison together.
Sure.
But that's because the game runs pretty smoothly, and so they're limited with the resources they've got available with what they're developing. So anyway, as AA games go, and to me, even like low-level AAA games, this one is so good. Like, there's multiple times I've been moved. Like, holy crap, what should I do here? I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Because conflict.
Like, a lot of conflict, yes. And the main two characters' relationship is starting to get really strained as they're engaging with these other people who have conflicts that hit home for them. And then they'll talk about it, and they'll be like, well, is that what you think about what we're doing now? Because, like, minor spoilers, but it's in the trailer. Sorry. One of you's a ghost and one of you's not. And you have major decisions to make about how to handle this. And you're living a way that you're not letting anyone else live. Like, your job is to stop ghosts from haunting people, and yet you two are like embracing this idea of being a human ghost partnership whenever you're not letting anyone else do it. So, like, that whole dynamic is already like, hey, we're kind of big
hypocrites
here. Yeah. But dude, there's like legit boss fights and stuff. Like, I talked about one last week that had it reminded me of something you'd see in a Resident Evil game or something. This gigantic, creepy boss that you have to fight. And there's a few others like that too, that I was really surprised with the levels of boss fights. I'm still surprised with how big this game is.
Yeah.
It has a lot of the video gamey tropes. And I think you could even say this about Rebirth, where it's kind of like, hey, we don't want to make you have to figure out where to climb. We're just going to spray paint the edges yellow. So, it's got a lot of that too, where, for example, I did this section up on the side of this mountain where I could see the glowing blue chest that I know has some items that I want. Literally the only thing between me and it is an old crate and a couple of barrels. Like, in real life, you just kind of move the barrel and just walk over there, or you might kind of hop over it. But I can't get there. I have to solve this big puzzle to get all the way around, drop the log to walk across to get to it. So it's got a lot of that kind of like, thanks video games. It's got a lot of that.
Yeah.
But so in that sense, it can feel a little last gen, just in terms of like how they technically and visually accomplish some things.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But man, the voice acting is really great, and I've been legitimately surprised at where some of the storylines have gone. So I'm absolutely loving it. The banter between the two of you, I think I've heard all of them. I've played this game for like 45 hours now, which is way longer than you need to. But I'm doing what Dan's doing. I'm completing everything. If you do all the haunting cases, I think there's 23. I think each of those has multiple step missions. Each of those has a follow-up activity afterwards where you can help them kind of do like, depending on what decision you make, there's a follow-up activity you can do. And it could be everything from go bury this thing by the sea for me. If, you know what I mean? It's like some kind of additional step you can take to help them with their grief or whatever, or their anger. So yeah, I'm just incredibly impressed by this game, and I really have enjoyed the combat. I've unlocked all the different special moves now, and I'm having a good time with the combat. There's some really tough areas. You can go into these areas called the void. It's like the space between the living and the dead. Looks very much like, remember in Control when you go to those weird training looking areas and everything's moving and you're fighting those kind of faceless glob guys that are shooting at shit.
I think so.
It's that type of a thing where it's like a dreamland. Things are floating weird. And so, but each time you go in the void, you have to make it to the end. You have to defeat this gigantic tornado called Sorrow. And there's a special way to beat it every time. And there's always new rules. It's like, hey, this type of weapon does extra damage, or this type of combo, or this character will do more damage this time, or heavy attacks is the way to go this time. So like it gives you a random rule when you start the void to focus in on. So I like that too. They've done a really, I mean, they had no reason to make the combat as good as it is because the storyline's so good. You could have just given me press one button combat and I would have been fine to just charge through the story, but they've got me really intrigued.
Yeah, they could have just Life Estranged it and just had it be like you're walking around and doing these like stories.
Yeah, press square to banish. Got it. I'll do that.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. And sometimes it's legitimately sad, and sometimes the two characters disagree. You know, she's coming from a female point of view. You're coming from at least for me, I'm coming from the male point of view, and I'm kind of like, well, this is clearly the wife's fault, and she's like, he's a monster. Like, so sometimes they'll disagree on what to do, which is interesting too.
I don't know how you make games like this. Like, it's actually insane. Like, it's very much like, Charlie with the Sunny,
all the connections.
Just all the, like, it has to be, right? Like, just a massive wall with all these things, like, trying to keep it all together. Like, because I don't know how you do it otherwise. It just seems insane.
There have been a few moments that I've gone exploring too far, and I found some warehouse that I didn't have any missions at. I just kind of found it down on this beach. And then I found a few hidden items, but I couldn't advance. So I went back to the town, did a bunch of things, and eventually got a quest to go to that warehouse. And then one of the characters goes, oh, that's probably the warehouse that we found down on the beach. So she referenced the fact that we've already been there. Like little tweaks like that.
You
didn't have to do that. But
it's so good.
So nice. I mean, they did, and I noticed it, and I'm like, dude, this is
because it's realistic, and then it's so much extra work on the back end for them to do that, but it's realistic. Like, people are gonna realistically like notice and like speak to a thing, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
absolutely,
that stuff is just, I love it.
I will just tell you as an example, and then I'll move on from this, but as an example of why I think some of these little storylines are so intriguing. There's a storyline where there's this brother and sister who are these super devout Puritans. This is set like in the 1600s. So we're still a colony of England, and it's a lot of like Catholics versus Protestants, and Puritanism is a big thing here in the colonies. And so very devout, the witch hunts were happening. That's a big part of the storylines too, is like if you're doing witchcraft or, devil worship, all that kind of stuff is a big part of the storyline, which of course contradicts a lot of what we're actually doing. Because they look at us sometimes as people who are practicing maybe some dark arts, which we are. I mean, we literally draw these evil symbols in the ground and sprinkle some kind of powder on it and summon the dead. So we're not Christians in this game. So anyway, there's a brother and sister who are very devout Puritans, and he hates your character. He hates you the whole time. He doesn't want you there. He thinks you're evil. He thinks you're of the devil. Whatever. You're not Christian. You need to get out of here. So eventually start helping him solve this haunting with his sister, who's been super sick. And it turns out that she decided to fast, and she just killed herself with this fast. But the brother let her because it's God's will. It's this whole like crazy, they're like to the point of insane Puritans, So she dies, and of course is haunting him because essentially he let her die. He didn't have to. He could have gotten her help, but he kept her hidden away, and she died. So she's haunting him. But she thinks she's an angel. He thinks she's an angel. So now they think it's like the sign from God that she's an angel who's returned. So your storyline is to like try to convince one or both of them, if you can, that no, you're a ghost. Like this is not of God. And so the way I finished it was I kind of got her convinced that she saw through God's will for her in this role and it's time to let go. So she's not totally convinced, but she was willing to go. And he's pissed off, won't talk to me anymore. Like that character. So like,
yeah, she's just gone now. So
I was just like the start to finish, I was intrigued, and I was like, this is so good. And it didn't need to be this good, but it's really, really great.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. And
what was it like when I thought out? That's crazy.
Was it like $50 when it launched?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game too, like as I'm playing and I'm loving the lore, they're setting up world rules. Like the rules of this lore. And I'm sure it's being taken from all kinds of different practices and history and fiction and who knows whatever else, right? I'm sure there's some real pieces in here. But now I'm all of a sudden like, dude, make another one of these and set it in London this time. Make another one and set it like in Northern Africa. And like they've referenced Banishers that are all over the place. And it's just kind of like, because Banishers, it's almost like a Witcher or an assassin where it's kind of like, I don't know if there's like a house that's organized of these people that are all know each other, but the profession is real in this world, in this version of Earth. And it feels like The Witcher when you show up and like, oh, Witcher. So they call me Banisher with the same kind of like, ugh. Oh. What do you want, Banisher? And it's really interesting. And I would love more in this world. I'm just absolutely fascinated by it. So anyway, I'll move on from that. I highly, highly recommend it. I think both of you would really like the story. I think Jeff might like the gameplay more than Dan, although Dan, you might like it. Think of it like a God of War light, which is what I said last week. A God of War super light, super light. But it's there. There's pieces of it that you're like, yeah, not bad. That felt pretty good. Yeah.
I'm pretty laid back about stuff like that. I don't have to be like, oh, it needs to be God of War level, for me to, and the story will carry, because again, I'm a story, story cuck. So,
me too.
So like that will carry it for me, even if the gameplay is like 5 out of 10. I'm like, listen, it's good enough where the story is amazing and I'm fine.
I think I expected that, and it's the gameplay to me is even better, but certainly video gaming at times. Like I said, false walls all over the place, and like, all right, you're gonna make me backtrack all the way over here, fine. But the map isn't so absurdly big that like they need to. There's some quality of life stuff. If they make a sequel or if they update this, let me fast travel from anywhere. I'm really annoyed that I have to go find a campfire to fast travel from that point then somewhere else. Little things like that feel like a last gen game, Those things are certainly there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really love it. So that one is, I think I'm almost finished with it. And I know when the credits roll, I won't go back and try to clean up. Like, let me collect all the different things that I missed. Like, I think I'll be done with it. So once the credits roll, and I'll move on. So I'm trying to do all the little side things that I have even any interest in, because then I know I'm done with it. But man, I've really gotten my money's worth out of that one. That's been a really fun game. That's really the only other thing I've been playing. I did want to highlight real quick a couple of things I bought on the Steam sale that's going on right now through Thursday. They have their spring sale happening. I finally bought Sekiro on PC, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it again. I played it for a little while on like the PS4, I think.
I feel like Lucius Fox telling that one guy who's trying to bribe Bruce Wayne about his identity. Good luck.
Good luck.
All right.
Yeah, I probably won't play it a ton, but it's been every time it drops, it's like $30. So it's like it goes to half price during a lot of these sales.
Listen,
and I'm like,
you just paid half of what everybody else pays, Tim, for the best From Software game. So I'm just saying, you just paid half.
Well, I know part of what you said is true, and part of what you said is not true. But
all of it is true.
I got another vampire shut up, Vampire Survivors leave me alone. I can't help it sometimes. It's called Halls of Torment, and I can't wait to play it. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like Diablo 2, like the visual style, animation stuff kind of reminds me of maybe even Diablo 1. Actually, it's probably more accurate. But the Steam reviews on it are overwhelmingly positive, which I always love to see that. That always makes me kind of go, oh, should I grab it? And it just came out last year. But anyway, there's apparently a lot of RPG elements to it too. But looking at the videos of it, same thing. Hordes of enemies rushing you while you're just demolishing them with these ridiculous moves and stuff. So
what is that one called?
That one's called Halls of Torment.
Halls of Torment.
Yeah. By a developer, and it was published by them too, called Chasing Carrots, which gotta like that.
Chasing carrots. Oh yeah, this looks classic.
Doesn't look like Diablo 1 kind of a vibe. Yeah.
Very classic, yeah.
But I'm sure it's fun. I'm looking forward to that one. You know what I was doing? I was looking through on the Steam sale, most played on Steam Deck or something like that. It was like basically like best games that are on sale for the Steam Deck or something like that. Some kind of list someone had compiled. So I grabbed that one. And lastly, I grabbed I'll let you guys know if this is any good. This looks like an absolute swimming in seventh, maybe sixes game called Giants Uprising. Have you heard of this?
Giants Uprising. No, but it sounds like a game that would be a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
I mean, you literally, and it's a bad title. You literally are a giant in this fantasy realm destroying these medieval towns. Like you're captured.
Dude, this looks rad.
And now you get to walk around destroying their villages and towns and killing them.
That concept of that sounds fantastic.
Right? It must not be great or maybe there's some technical issues. It's got mixed reviews, but it's sitting at like 68% of the mixed, so it's not awful.
Yeah.
And I think it was how much? I think it was like $5 or maybe it was $9. No, yeah, $6. It was $6. So I was like, all right.
I need to watch a video of this.
Yeah. So I'll let you know if it's worth your monies. Anyway.
How much was that one?
It was $6 on the sale right now.
Okay, yeah. I mean, $6. That's not bad. It's not bad at all.
Even just the concept of being like a fantasy 3D version of Rampage where you're just destroying these little stupid humans. Like, all right, I'll destroy these homes. I'll do this.
Puny humans.
From what I can tell, it sounds like it might, at a certain point, it gets frustrating because they don't give you what you need to, because the humans get more, like it gets harder. I think there's a difficulty spike and whatever.
Sure.
But I don't know if I would ever get to that point with a game like this anyway. I feel like I'd play 1 or 2 levels and be like, that was fun. And then maybe done. I don't know. That's all I've got for really anything. Watching, playing, anything new or old, whatever. What about you, Dan? You said you were streaming Final Fantasy VIII.
Yep. So I started 3 last night. So something I guess I just didn't really ever notice, even though I technically have played 1 through 6, like I've mentioned before. Just 1 through 3 were the ones that I had the least experience with, and then 4, 5, 6 I had more. And
a lot of people say 2 is the worst. Do you feel like that's true?
So I finished 2. It's I definitely like 1 more, just because it has like a more, I think it just feels cozier and it's a little more simple, and it just feels like very classic, of just like you have a fighter and the classic black mage and the classic white mage, and it's just very traditional and feels feels right. 2, I like
Fantasy great again. I get it. Keep going.
Yes, exactly. 2, I like because they like tried something really different, like right out the gate. They're like, all right, we did FF1, now we're going to go into 2, and we're going to do something like really different. We're going to have specific characters that have specific names, specific character sprites. The combat system is really different.
Don't you have to like use weapons to level them up or something? I'm trying to remember that game.
Every weapon that you're using has its own level, magic, its own level. Like everything is very specific to what you're actually using, which in theory is cool. It just means that there's potentially a lot of level grinding going on if like suddenly maybe you make a shift. Or like as you progress through the game and you want to give somebody a new spell, well, all your other spells are like level 7 and now you got this level 1 spell. So then you're having to grind and level that spell out. So there's kind of that going on, which, doesn't maybe necessarily feel great, but there's a lot of experimentation there, which I think is cool. But yeah, I don't know. I appreciate that they did something different. There's just definitely a quirkiness to it and a wonkiness of like, then there's also the system of like you're learning words in order to ask people certain things to progress the story. So like if you need to ask the princess about an airship, which then she's like, oh, so Sid, yada, yada, you have to find the one NPC that's going to mention the word airship that you learn.
Oh my, that's annoying.
Yeah, so exactly. So in theory, kind of interesting, but like in practice, when it's just the one NPC that you have to stumble across and talk to learn that word, to mention it to that character, then yeah.
And that'll hold up advancement of the game even until you do some of that stuff.
Well, yeah, because what you end up doing a lot in that game, at least in like the beginning, is like you go out and do a thing, and then like you basically kind of backtrack to the main town because it's basically a resistance group that's trying to fight the Empire. It's kind of almost like Star Wars, actually.
I mean, the Final Fantasy game has a resistance against an empire, an evil empire.
Yes, weird. Exactly.
Very weird.
Little Star Wars. So the Empire is like going around and literally just decimating all the towns and villages in the world. So you have this like resistance group, and the princess is like leading the charge. So you're having to like backtrack a lot. You go back to her, and then it kind of like will progress things. But again, like certain points in the story, you're having to learn that specific word to like tell somebody a thing, and it triggers, whatever the next event is. But yeah, I don't know. Like people spoke about it like it's like this like abysmal like like the score of the game would be like a 2 out of 10, and it's like I don't think it is, but there's definitely
it's just the lowest when it comes to ranking Final Fantasies for many people.
Sure. And because for me, it's like it's 13 and 15 are at the bottom of the list. But for me, it's more of a story issue.
Your dislike of 15 is so overblown, Dan. You need to work on yourself, okay?
It's my least favorite. I tell you, and I've played so many Final Fantasy games. It's definitely my least favorite.
All right, I feel outnumbered. I feel attacked, and I want to end this podcast right now.
All right. Well, I mean, then it is a short episode. So, then it is a short episode.
No, I'm kidding. There's actually some fun stuff in it. It's just
yeah, there is.
Well, there's story issues, but yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just not. I didn't finish it for a reason.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Tried. It's worse now that we've got Remake, Rebirth, and 16.
Yes. So in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I see what they were trying to do.
I liked it then. I really did. I liked it a lot. I really
like
enjoyed
they needed those hiccups to get to where they are now, how good they are now consistently.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, it's like a C, but at the time I thought it was a high B, low A. Like I really enjoyed that game when I played it, but looking back on it now, I'm like, it's not as good.
Or as Dan says, the worst. It's the absolute worst.
Or it's the worst. Either
one. But yeah, so I'm only like an hour and a half into like story wise, because with streaming things take longer, or at least it does for me because I tend to yap sometimes. But it feels 3 feels more like
that's called engaging with your audience. By the way, I don't know.
It's true. I'm engaging. I'm engaging. But it feels more like 1 because 3 does the job system, which is fun, and it feels a bit more fleshed out. I know 5 is even more fleshed out. But 3 is like the middle ground, which is really cool. So you start out with the simple warrior, white mage, black mage, monk, and red mage. But obviously, as you progress, you'll get more. Yeah, and I don't know. It feels kind of breezy in that first hour. It feels nice. It's very straightforward. So I haven't like got lost already like I did with 2. And yeah, it seems to be taking itself a little less seriously, but eventually I'm sure it will hit a point in the story where maybe something is like, oh man, like the darkness thing shows up, because there's always the darkness. We're the warriors of light again. And we gotta go fight the darkness. So
yeah, we do.
But yeah, I'm having a good time with it. I'm enjoying going through these games and finally actually beating them, and seeing the origins of this series that I love so much from start to finish.
You're becoming a Final Fantasy fan, finally.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Just doing it now. Yeah, exactly.
Just now.
Yeah, just now.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I'm glad you're doing that. I think it's fun to revisit those. Are you playing the Pixel remasters then, like on Steam or on Switch or something? Or are you on PlayStation? You're on PlayStation. Okay.
Yeah, I got the old the camera's right here. There we go. And I like it's got all the little sprites down here. Look at all these little guys. So do
you just run your PS5 through like the Stream Deck then? Is that how you do it?
Yeah. So I have I got the Stream Deck over there. I just plug it in HDMI and then it pops up on OBS. So
nice.
That's
very cool.
Yeah. So I'm having a good time.
Nice, dude.
I'm having a good time.
Having a good time.
Right next to Jeff? What's there's Sephiroth.
Just peering over me.
He is gorgeous. All right. Jeff, what about you? What have you been? Anything else you've been playing, or do you want to highlight some TV movie stuff?
I can talk about some TV things I've watched. I finished Avatar, The Last Airbender, season 1, the live action version on Netflix. And really enjoyed it. I did not expect that. I know the bar was lower than the ground.
Yeah, you start watching it like this, like, all right.
Because of the M. Night Shyamalan thing, but like,
Shyamalan.
Yeah, but this is just way. I mean, it's even for me, more digestible than the cartoon, because maybe because I've been successfully conditioned into smaller doses of TV series. Like, it's 10 episodes a season now. I think it's 8 in this season. Like, I mean, I'm conditioned to that, and I enjoy that. Like, I know that some people miss the 20 whatever unsustainable 20 to 24 episodes.
I considered going back to rewatch some old seasons of 24, and when I realized they're legitimately 24 whenever episodes, I was like, I'm never gonna do this. Like, that's so much TV.
West Wing's the same way for me. I finished first season of West Wing, and I was like, I get it, it's really good. Like, I can't with this 20 to 24 episode seasons. It's crazy. So I mean, for me, it feels like, I know that people that love the cartoons, and they're, I finished season 1 of the cartoons as well a while back, and I liked it a lot. I'm not on the same level of love as they are. So they are kind of like upset more about how compact the storytelling is and how they've rushed certain character arcs and stuff like that. But for me, I mean, I feel like I'm spending sufficient time with these characters, and if they go through a shift or a change, I feel it. Like, I'm getting enough from what they're showing me, that it doesn't feel rushed to me. So I mean, I don't know. I really liked it, and the fact that it's kind of like going for a more violent kind of tone, because it's not this bright, colorful animated cartoon. So they kind of have to gear it a little more towards adults. It's TV-14, and it shows. Like, I mean, the rapport between the kids, the main 3 kids, are not. It's not like it's all Dower and Zack Snyder's version of this story or whatever. Like, it's. It's
Snyder cut.
It's not like they're murdering people left and right, but there's just more morally gray stuff going on, which they probably borrowed a lot of that from a cartoon. But they're not afraid to show violence and stuff, and how brutal some of the Fire Clan leaders really are. It's good though. I mean, I liked it. They already got renewed for 2 more seasons to wrap up the story. And I know that people are mixed on this. Maybe way less mixed than Cowboy Bebop's adaptation, for sure, which I ended up liking too, weirdly enough. But it sounds like One Piece is the best live action adaptation they've done so far from like an anime or animated.
Well, the creator was there like through the whole process, whereas
they tried that with this one, but I bet the tonal shifts probably drove the creators away. They were like, this isn't what we need, and I get that, but I liked what they gave us. I'm sorry.
That's why they need to bake into
liking it.
Sorry, I liked it, everybody.
They need to. Those creators need to bake into their contracts. Like, listen, if we're going to absolutely doing this, then we're the ones that created the story originally. You need to like kind of give us the reins of this, like, And I don't know why they don't do that, but I don't know.
Anyway, I'm surprised I liked it. I did wrap up. There was a couple miniseries on Apple minus or max minimum, whatever you want to call it, Apple TV. That just wrapped up this week. One of them is the New England Patriots docuseries, which as a Bills fan, I'm not wearing the Bills gear right now, but I guess you can't really see my hoodie. That's a Bills hoodie. Anyway, I should not like this miniseries, like docuseries, like as their division rivals. They, over the years, Tom Brady, we've lost to him so many times.
That's right.
But
Jeff,
it's about the Brady Belichick run.
I don't
Dan's
care.
A fan all of a sudden.
Suddenly gives a shit. But I mean, it's gripping, man. I love sports docuseries type stuff. I just do. And it was the entire 10 episodes was so good. And to get the confirmation once again that Bill Belichick is just an insufferable person makes me so happy.
Which we all kind of knew.
We all kind of knew, and like we sensed it from even before. Like I think there was a documentary, and I don't even remember what it was. I think it was when Vice TV kept greenlighting all of these Dark Side of the Ring spinoffs, and one of them was Dark Side of Football, and it was all about Bill Belichick. One episode was all about Bill Belichick, and I was like, "Well, this guy's shady, bro." And he finally, even after he won all those, they won like what 6 or 7. 6 Super Bowls, I think.
6 total, yeah. I think
he lost 3 though, so what a loser.
He went to 9 Super Bowls.
Dude, the season where they won all of the other,
and then the Giants beat him. I laughed so hard. Oh my god.
What was it, like the 5th seed Giants or something?
Undefeated season, right? And then they lost at the end.
But Eli Manning always got the best of him every time. It's kind of wild. And the Philadelphia
9 Super Bowl
once
appearances?
again, Once again, the NFC East just gets the best of the Patriots. I don't know what it is with NFC East teams versus AFC East teams in the Super Bowl. The Bills lost to NFC East teams all 4 Super Bowls. And then the Philadelphia beat with their backup quarterback. They beat the Patriots in one of the Super Bowls that was recent. That was like not that long ago. And look what happened to him now. Nick Foles is like,
was he an assistant coach at a high school somewhere? Is that what he's doing?
They kind of like basically treated him the way Bill Belichick would have treated him. Like they just said, thanks for the win, but we're good. Like,
there are a lot of players like him, and that'd be a fascinating story too. Your Marcus Mariotas, your Joe Flacco's, your Nick Foles that are like good players, but for some reason they get kind of just ignored when it comes to teams filling that need until your team loses like 5 players to injury. Then you're like, all right, where is he? Is he on this couch at home? He is. All right, we'll bring him in. Well,
right.
That happened last year to Joe Flacco. He came in and helped the Browns make the playoffs. It was crazy.
He did, and I was like genuinely rooting for them. Of course I was. I mean, how could you not? It's like a Cinderella type of story. And Bill Belichick was there, by the way, and totally took a dump on that whole town. So that was his origin story. His origin story as a villain started in Cleveland. They hate him there.
Bill Belichick has some of the best press interview answers. Like they're usually very boring, but sometimes you can find some that are just
going to move on from that.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is that? It's not even an answer.
I mean, he has no personality in those at all.
They did the same thing where, at some points he's showing like genuine, like thorough answers because he's like talking about jolly moments in his career. And then as soon as he's pressed about Deflategate, as soon as he's pressed about the way he treated Tom Brady near the end of his run, and the whole reason that Brady left was because of Belichick being an asshole. Like as soon as he's pressed for that, he's just like, well, I don't know. I can't really speak to Tom. Only Tom can answer for Tom. I'm like, again, with the non-answer bullshit. Like he's just insufferable, man. I don't like that guy. And I'm glad he got fired this year. Screw him. Anyway.
Did he got fired?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
It was like it was a mutual parting of, right? It was a mutual parting of ways.
Oh, okay.
But he did not get hired anywhere else.
So. No, he did not.
And he's got plenty of money.
He interviewed a couple places and no one hired him.
Yeah. Well, he's got plenty of money.
There's a lot of negative stuff that comes with that, and like he's had a lot of people work for him by this point in his legacy, to where a lot of them are like, no, like we're good. We don't need this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that's a really good show. Really, really good. And the other one I finished from Apple was Masters of the Air. It was only 9 episodes. The Pacific and Band of Brothers were 10, I think. And in the 9th episode, you can feel like, okay, they're meant to be 10 episodes here, like maybe. The final episode is the only point where I felt they were kind of tying up loose ends a little too quickly. But other than that, it's still my favorite show of the year, like easily. It's just these guys, the Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks producing crew or whatever. I don't know. They just make some of the best World War II television or movie, anything I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just so good. I felt it was like a little better than the Pacific because some of those episodes were not my favorite, I guess. Almost on par with Band of Brothers, though. Band of Brothers is still, tops. I mean, especially because it came out of nowhere.
And it holds up so well. It
really, really does. And this one, I have concerns about this one holding up. That's the only long-term concern, because the CG is like there has to be a lot of CG. They're in the air a lot. They can't recreate those, obviously. So there's a lot of CG with the big air battles, especially when like we as a country had not formally invaded any other countries by this point. So we're just supporting the war efforts of the quote unquote good guys. We're just sending bombers over and dropping bombs, which is not invading, apparently.
Classy.
Back then, that wasn't invading. Meant you're sending troops on the ground. That's what that meant back then. Now it's a little bit muddy. But so that's what it was about. Primarily, what the show started with was following those type of pilots, and they would just get decimated because they just follow the same path, and they're on big air carriers. They're not on jets. They're just like they're getting taken out left and right. They're suicide missions for a lot of people. So it's a very intense show, and when they have those missions and those scenes, I'm just on the edge of my seat and stressed out the whole time. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then you got Austin Butler. I'm Austin.
Dude, there's something about him. I on your recommendation, I did go watch some of the like before and after voices, and like he's always had a bit of a southern drawl even when he was really young, but it wasn't like, it's not even just his tone, like his pitch definitely dropped and it feels like he's putting on a little bit of a deeper voice than he needs to.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You do you, man. But there is something about how slow he talks. Like I've seen the group interviews of the Dune 2 cast where they'll have Florence and Dea, Timothy and Austin. I've seen a couple of these at different talk shows and stuff like that.
Same.
And they're all like fast, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, I didn't really know about that." And it's just kind of like, stop. You have to stop like a little.
He's trying to McConaughey. McConaughey's being, I feel like he, for better or worse, is being his authentic self when he's out there talking. And I'm sure he loves the sound of his voice. Don't get me wrong. It's a great voice.
He absolutely does.
Yes. Especially when you listen to him talk on podcasts and you're like, he's not saying anything. For hours, he's not saying anything.
But I'm lost in his eyes. I'll tell you that.
I love my mom. I saw her working. He always makes weird sound effects and shit when he says nothing. But yeah, Austin Butler is trying to do the whole McConaughey thing, carve out a niche personality.
I like that he's made fun of it, right? On SNL and at awards, things like he's made fun of himself with it, and that's totally fine. But it's also a little bit like, it's like when I've got family members who have moved to the South and all of a sudden they talk real Southern, and we're all like, that's not how.
That's
I've been here for like 2 months.
You are fake news, nasty woman. Like it's just immediately.
You're a nasty woman. I remember that.
But he's still good and emotes when he needs to, like, I mean, there's some moments where these pilots end up in severe trouble. They're in enemy territory after a plane got downed, and like, he has to show some vulnerability in some moments.
Watching him as Fade Routha, how do you say his name? Like, I'm not going to question his ability as an actor to turn it on into whatever mode he needs. Like,
right,
that dude is terrifying, and he doesn't talk slow like a Southern Elvis, whatever. Like, he doesn't do that. He's awesome.
He is such a creep, and I feel like he added so much flavor to that role that was not on the page.
So don't get me wrong, it's not an insult. I think he's a fantastic
Yeah.
actor from what I've seen, but it is just funny.
You had Barry Keoghan in this show, by the way, who ends up doing this accent that you're like, where's he from? What is that? Well, yeah, I feel like he does this in everything I see him in, where I'm like, okay, but where are you from, though? Like, even in Banshees of Inisherin, which is clearly an Irish movie, I'm like, okay, but what part of Ireland are you from? Because I don't know what accent.
Yeah, but that might be his best performance.
I would agree with that.
I mean, he's been good in a lot of things, but he is so good in that. Like,
yeah.
Like his reaction when she turns him down. Anyway, whatever. It's all very, very good.
I think he got nominated for an Oscar for that role for that reason, obviously.
I think it might be that scene even. Like the way he reacts in that scene is just kind of like.
Oh. There's one dude. I don't know what else he's been in. I think he was Newt Scamander's brother in the Fantastic Beasts, the last 2 Fantastic Beasts movies.
Okay.
He is like the co-lead of Masters of the Air, and he is outstanding. I would argue that he has more scenes.
He kind of looks like a young Richard Gere kind of a dude, right? With a little bit of like the
yeah. He's got a mustache in this one. I think he's also a British guy, but he plays an American in this, of course, because all the British people are stealing our jobs. So. But he is fantastic, man. He is so good. And there's a scene where he gets caught. God, I'm trying to dance around it, but there's so much tension in this scene where he's talking to a German officer, an intelligence officer. And again, we had not formally invaded this country. So he's being asked all these questions, and you kind of realize that like Nazi intelligence was at that point in the war was really next level compared to America. Like we were over here going, there's no Holocaust. Like we were over here, we didn't know. Sure. We really didn't know.
They had us outclassed in every area.
Yes. Hey, guess what, guys? Some people still don't think that the Holocaust happened.
That's true. Like back then, where like all you had was like newspaper headlines, and coming from Nazi Germany, who controlled the narrative, so you're not really getting pictures.
Oh man!
And it wasn't until there was like a report later. I've been watching a lot of World War II stuff lately, but it wasn't until like a report at some point. It was like a famous report. I can't remember before we invaded. That it was like detailing everything that was happening in the Holocaust. I don't know that there were pictures. I don't think there were, but it was like a journalist.
I don't think people really knew. And
yeah, but even that report was like, whatever. Like, I mean, there's no proof. Words aren't proof.
That's crazy.
Now,
you know,
I also like to keep in my headcanon, despite real history that I could go access, that they knew hardly anything, and it wasn't until all the characters I love from Band of Brothers discovered it in that episode 9 or 10 or whatever it is. Why We Fight, I think it's called. Anyway, the episode when they discover the camp and just there's like that whole sequence.
They have another similar moment where soldiers, prisoners of war at POW camps, like what do they call those? The stalag. I don't know what they call those. I don't know how to pronounce it. I should say. Stalagtite. Yeah, they're like prison. Whatever. They're by a common name. You know the movie The Great Escape? It's about escaping one of those German
Gulag or whatever.
Gulag. The Gulags.
Gulags are Russian, I think.
That's in Russia.
Oh.
But anyway,
I just know concentration camp.
There is one of those scenes where like they're kind of like they don't really show Jewish people's faces, but you know exactly who they are.
Sure.
And the soldiers are kind of getting a look at them for the first time, going, "What's going on over there?" So it's not really common knowledge completely. It's just the fact that they're a hostile country invading other countries. Right. That's the narrative. That is for certain. You know,
certainly there's no like Reddit forums to go and catch up on what their ideology is. You're just going to fight the bad guys.
This kind of reminds me, I am watching another docuseries right now, and it's called Turning Point, the Bomb and the Cold War. And I thought it was going to be a movie when I went into it. It's like an 8-9 episode, 10 episode miniseries. And it starts with just, here's why we created the bomb and here's what we did with it. And then from there, it's all about shadow operations that are documented. Like they're interviewing historians. They're not interviewing like, what's that History Channel show? It's not like Ancient Aliens, but with American history.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Isn't that the famous meme of the guy like explaining something?
Aliens.
Yeah.
Aliens.
And the hair is just, they don't have any of those characters. They have like historians and professors and stuff talking about documented operations that when the CIA was invented, that I was like, knowing this makes me feel more alarmed about where we are in the world. Like all of this stuff just makes me feel really stressed.
They just want us to keep watching our entertainment and playing our games and not worry about that stuff, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Even though we have shows like this telling us flat out, like, no, we put those people in charge because they liked America, even though we knew they were terrible people.
And I'm like, I got to go finish Banishers, though. Like, I'll come back, but I got to find out what happens.
Like, okay, and watching that stuff, especially like on an edible, where you're like, are we going to get bombed right now? Like, I'm just like,
damn it,
stressing out. But it's a really good show. I'm really into it. And each episode so far, I'm like 4 episodes in. Each episode starts with like showing footage of like how Russia is invading Ukraine, and it talks to some people involved with the Russia-Ukraine war. And then they do flashbacks. I'm like, here's where we left off on the last episode. Like, so you're kind of like learning, how did we get here? How do we get to where Russia is currently as a country?
Yeah.
And
not their first invasion.
Spoiler. No. They even talk about like the thing that like
even during our lifetimes, it's not the first one.
Right. They talk about the how Hitler is often, as he should be, talked about as like a monstrous leader.
Yep.
But like Stalin is not talked about in the same breath when he should be. You know,
dude, there's literally the Bill Burr joke where he's talking about his batting app. He makes the whole batting app. Yeah, his numbers are like whatever he says.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
And he does that whole thing. Or
there's a whole episode about Stalin and the famine and how they killed hundreds of millions of people. Maybe not hundreds, but you know what I mean. It's like the numbers are just absurd.
The kind of numbers that like stop impacting you because they're too high. It's kind of like when you get to certain money amounts, like, oh, this company bought that company for $68 billion, and you're like, I don't know what that number actually
I don't know
means.
what that number means. Yeah. It's kind of like the man, so many people died. It was like 250,000 9/11s. And you're like, okay, I can't measure that. I don't.
Oh my God.
But like when I was thinking about billions and trillions the other day, people were talking about like billions, where it's like 1 billion is 1,000 millions. And I think of $1 million, that would change my life. Everything would be different forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're telling me that there's 1,000 of those to make 1 billion, and then these companies are spending hundreds of billions on things, in some cases even I'm just like, oh no, those numbers I can't even. That's not a number anymore.
I can't even comprehend it. Like,
it's just a concept now. You might as well just say a lot. They spent a lot.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like,
and all of this money floating around could be used for good causes, and they're just not. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's like I fought hard for this kind of financial security, even though at that point it's not even security anymore. It's just like you're flaunting it. I don't even know what to call it. You're
literally just hoarding it. It's just you're a hoarder. Like, I got to
pay the taxes, and that's like maybe half my billion. No, it's not.
Everything you guys are saying, the good news is Robert Kennedy Jr. might pick Jesse the Body Ventura to be his vice president.
Why don't you tell me? I'm down in the Baja.
I'm in the Baja.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Can you imagine that man sitting behind RFK during a State of the Union address, clapping? Can you imagine Jesse Ventura sitting back? I don't know. I can't picture it.
He is gone, man. He did Theo Vaughn's podcast, and I was like, oh, this guy is not. He's not there anymore. Because when he was governor, he was a guy worth listening to, in my opinion. So,
dude, all these old guys are gone.
Tell me. Yeah,
we keep just fixating on old white dudes being in charge of everything.
I don't get it either.
I know, man. I know.
What is happening?
Well, I did want to end on a high note.
Yeah, let's do it.
The last show that I finished watching, it was only 6-episode season. It was season 3 of this show called Girls 5 Eva. And that's the number 5 Eva.
Oh, I get it, like forever, but it's different.
Because forever's too short. That's how the lyrics go in the song. But it's produced by the 30 Rock, like Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, I think is his name, and so Kimmy Schmidt people. So like the humor is very, very silly, very quick.
You needed it.
Yeah, like, and it started on Peacock. They gave up on the show. Netflix bought it from them. Okay. So I think this might serve as a final season, maybe, unless the viewership is there, because Kimmy Schmidt got kind of a good run out of that.
Yeah, what they get 4 seasons or something?
Yeah, something like that. And they got like a movie.
Last one was that Choose Your Own Adventure thing too.
Yeah,
remember that? Like
what?
They had that.
I didn't know they did that. That's cool.
Yeah, they did like a after Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror thing. They did
kind of like the Black Mirror thing, to be honest.
The Black Mirror thing was kind of dope. I saw the whole thing through. I was like, I gotta do
loved
this
it.
Again. Yeah, that was fun. But Girls 5 Eva is ridiculous. It follows these and there's a lot of millennial nostalgia in this too. But it follows these older women who like try to reunite this. They were a famous girl group in the 2000s, and they're trying to like reunite and go back on tour again. But like nobody has that just doesn't exist anymore. Like that doesn't exist as popular anymore.
Sure.
So it's about that, and the songs are just terrible in a comical way.
I love that.
And they even have like background songs. Oh my God. There's one bit where I think the lead girl is Sarah Bareilles. I love her. She's great. Great singer.
Great singer. Yeah.
Pretty good actor. I loved her in Waitress. She was great in that musical. And the other person was in Hamilton. She's like a co-lead, I guess. Busy Phillips is in it too. She's like in Dawson's Creek and whatever else. Anyway.
What a dumb name. Keep going.
I know. I'm busy. Okay, yeah, but like, can I talk to you for a second? No, I'm busy.
Abbott and Costello. I get it.
I know. The other person is Paula Pell, who you'll recognize from SNL and Tina Fey stuff. She's a very funny woman. Anyway, there's one part where one of the ladies is like talking about how aroused she is at how attractive what guy is, and she's like, I'm having a Home Alone doorknob moment. And like her friend is like, what do you even mean by that? And she's like, when the doorknob's like really like red hot.
Yeah.
That's how I feel down there right now. And she's like, why would you co-opt a Christmas movie that way?
Yeah, like a doorknob. But
why would you ruin Home Alone for me?
Later on in the episode, she's making out with this guy, and the song is like Home Alone doorknob. It's so freaking funny, dude.
Oh my God, that's like so specifically on the nose. Like,
and then like the rest of the episode, she's just making more innuendo about Home Alone. This must be like what Kevin felt when he reunited with his family, and like it's like, what?
All right, I do like that kind of humor. I need something like that too.
It's really, really dumb in a very funny way. Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, nice. We'll move into some gaming headlines, but when you mentioned docuseries, I do have to mention, if you're a true crime fan, my wife and I just watched, I think it was called Cyber Sleuths. It was on Paramount, and it was a 3-episode thing centered around the Idaho killings. That guy, Brian Koberger, who stabbed those college students in their housing. Do you remember this story? It was like a national.
I don't remember this at all for some reason.
My wife.
So really interesting. The story itself, the murder itself, of course, is horrific and all that stuff. And whether or not he's guilty, we don't know. His trial hasn't even happened yet. So he's accused. He's charged with it. We don't know if he actually did it. So gotta say that. But those kids were definitely murdered by somebody or group of people, or something happened. And the documentary is interesting because it talks, at first it almost seems to glorify, and you almost kind of root for these cyber sleuths who are sitting at home. They're in their
That
Reddit
reminds
groups,
me of is this Don't Mess with Cats?
It's like Don't F with Cats, except with them, they saw at least elements of success in that series. Like they would uncover things that actually helped. This is different. This has elements of kind of like, you kind of almost wrecked the whole thing. Like you were updating the main suspect, and he was actually in your groups, we think, potentially, like chatting with you guys and stuff. So like, I don't know. There's something about the cyber sleuth thing that I root for the underdog. Like it's hard not to root against the big, mean, evil mainstream media. But then and these police don't know what they're doing. They're so inept. They're so inept. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, they made an arrest, and it's someone that none of the cyber sleuths knew about. Like the police were like actually on the trail of someone. They actually had evidence that was leading them down a track to like get the evidence they need to get the warrant to make the arrest. It just took a couple of months to get there.
Yeah.
But all the cyber sleuths, of course, thought they knew better. So like, I don't know. It's just a fascinating thing to watch unfold, and to know that's not going away anytime soon. Everyone's got their YouTube channels and their Instagrams where their main following is, I'm a true crime investigator and I'll be on the scene, boots on the ground. And it's just kind of like,
oh my God.
Probably shouldn't, I guess.
What a cringe existence. Yeah.
It is cringe, but it also makes for a fascinating documentary because they're featured heavily, and they're more than willing. They are interviewed a ton. Like they know they're in this documentary, and they know that there's going to be times when they don't look great. So they just love the attention.
Is there a docuseries that's called like The Program or something like that?
Maybe.
That just dropped on Netflix. It's like number 3 right now.
Is that the true crime kind of a thing?
Yeah, it is. It's I'm wondering if this is the program that like all of the people from like Dr. Phil's show were sent to, because I know there's some horror stories there.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Dr.
Yeah, he's making the rounds now too. All right, we'll be right back.
Thanks for that.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, a couple of headlines here real quick. Persona 6, of course, we know that's being worked on. We just don't know much about it, but it does sound like there's been some hints, and the others who have picked up different pieces of information. It sounds like it could be a multi-console launch, which would be a new thing for a modern Persona game. So that'd be interesting if it does actually hit Xbox. And even if it doesn't hit it at launch, if it's like, hey, it's on PS5 and then it hits Xbox later that year or the next year, even that'd be something. Because right now it's like a multi-year separation if it comes to Xbox.
I definitely feel like they've been working towards launching it either before PS5 or at the same time. Yeah. With all of these Persona games coming out on Game Pass.
Yeah, I think, and I wonder if Atlas is in the same boat as pretty much everyone is right now. And as we've heard with Xbox a lot, where it's like, hey, how can we get our software that we're developing and investing in as many hands as possible? Like, how can we get as many sales and subscriptions as possible? Why wouldn't a company like Atlas want that too? Like Sony would have to really pony up the cash, no pun intended, to like convince you not to at this point, like unless they are publishing for you or have some kind of deal.
Yeah.
And even then, is that worth it? Because there's also like just the public perception these days where it's like, hey, it's actually better if you put it out on everything. Look at Alan Wake 2. Look at some of these games that previously were only on one console. That was just Xbox 360. The first Alan Wake was for a long time. And Alan Wake 2, of course, as we've heard, has had great sales success across both major platforms. So
I love that. Good for Remedy, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited for what they do next.
Control 2, I assume.
Yeah, and I think they own the IP for it or something like that. There was some news in recent weeks about them getting it from 505, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. So if 505, I don't know, does something shady that they have nothing to worry about.
Unless there's already a publishing deal in place for this particular sequel, and then who knows what happens after that. I'm not sure. Yeah. Or maybe that gives them more. I don't know. Maybe crossovers are limited by publishers. I have no idea how all that works. Like, how much could they put of their other games into Control because 505 was publishing? I have no idea. I don't know
how that works either. Like, not even a little bit.
But speaking of games doing well, Helldivers 2, according to some marketing analysts who are looking at different numbers and across different platforms, they think it's over 8 million units moved, which is amazing. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of copies of the game sold, which is well ahead of expectations, and I think that's an understatement for what they were expecting. So
that game is awesome. Too good. It like has no right to be that good, but they just keep supporting it thoroughly. And I don't know, man. This developer, I forget the name. They deserve all the kudos in the world. I mean, they are just It was a rough like couple weeks there where there were like server issues or whatever. Without the timeout window, they didn't have any timeout window at all. Yeah. Like you just stayed logged in.
Their expectations were low, apparently.
Yeah. They were like, oh, we didn't even hit 1 million in the last game. When we were at our most popular. But yeah, they just keep adding stuff like mechs and flying bugs, and then their marketing. Like somebody brought up the idea of flying bugs. Like you guys didn't tell us there were going to be flying bugs in this, and now we're getting attacked aerially by like bugs. And the Twitter is like the developer saying, "No, you didn't see that. That didn't happen."
You didn't see that.
They're like gaslighting their gamers basically with the.
That's so annoying.
You sound like you're not pro democracy with this.
Yeah, you're just too blinded.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just
they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing,
and it's super fun to play. Like it feels so good.
Yeah, I guess it's popular for a reason or whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. You know what? I was wrong. It's fine.
That's fine.
it's fine.
Yeah, that is sitting right beside a game like Pal World and games that I have not purchased. I have a lot of interest in because they check a lot of the boxes. I just am like, well, why would I spend full price on either of these games? And I know I'm not going to spend time on either of them right now. Like I'm not going to dedicate time to them.
I totally get that. That may depending on reviews, that may end up being me with Rise of the Ronin.
I can see that. I mean, that's gonna be a full price game, and it will
exactly. In Dragon's Dogma 2, I already know I'm gonna want to get that.
Yeah,
like right away. So I don't. You know what I mean? Like I just don't. Just based on things I'm hearing about it and how. God, it's just all the people that they are experts on these kind of games are like not saying the right things for me. It's kind of weird. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, speaking of game releases, V Rising is hitting its 1.0 full out of early access release on May 8th. So they're completing the game. They have the game complete. They'll release the final chapter, similar to games like Valheim, where they're like, they have every year-ish, they would put out a major new map area, new abilities. They're kind of like growing the game. Obviously, early access. But they've been really consistent. I got to give props to the team that's behind V Rising because they just put out that huge Gloomrot section last year with a ton of new content. It was awesome. I really enjoyed my time with it last year when I dove back in. So now this is a whole nother new area, new bosses, all of it. 1.0 release. They're adding a ton of end game content, and that's all arriving May 8th. And then they do have a PS5 release. No announcement for any other console. Later this year for V Rising. So that's cool.
Oh,
so
I thought you were talking about Valheim.
Oh no, like, V Rising. Okay. Too many V games. That's a weird sentence.
V Rises, brother.
What a
V Rises. Yeah.
V Rises, brother.
So yeah, I think that's.
I was born in the V.
I was molded by it.
Well, yes, you were, Bane. Yes, you were.
It's true. It's
very true, my friend. Anyway, so hey, V Rising is an awesome game. It mixes kind of survival crafting stuff that I love, like building your own castle, which is so fun, really cool. But it's also got that isometric top-down style RPG fighting of something like a Diablo, or yes, repetitive, but also equip a different weapon. You got a whole different move set. You can get different magic that you equip. Like, I find it to be a very satisfying, both survival and crafting and resource gathering, and really fun exploration and combat game. The boss fights are fun. So anyway, I really highly recommend that one, and it's cool. That full release is hitting soon. All right, so there's that. Let's see. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, that GameCube game, has a release date of May 23rd. Nintendo's filling out the calendar, folks.
Nice.
I love it.
And then Luigi's Mansion 2 HD hits June 27th. I think those were already rumored or leaked or something, because I've seen both. I saw the May 23rd date for sure. So someone leaked that.
Well, when they revealed them, they said like 2024. So we were just kind of like...
Well, someone leaked the May 23rd date like a week or two ago. It was some kind of retail thing where it was like, I think this might be coming out May 23rd, but it's hard to say. It was.
Well, I know they unveiled it proper on
March 10.
March 10. Yeah.
Mario Day.
So maybe it was like part of like a merch.
I just remember there being like a rumor it could come out on May 23rd, and then it was like Mario Day. Yeah, it's coming out May 23rd. So that's cool. And then Luigi's Mansion 2. Hey, Nintendo continues to be like, hey, we'll have a game for you every month. Every month we're gonna have at least one game, and sometimes it'll be in these cases remasters or remakes, but we'll have something for you.
The 1,000-Year Door is supposed to be the best Paper Mario, so I'm excited. I've not played any of them. Yeah, I never played any of them. So.
I know I'll enjoy this because I enjoyed Origami King, I think is it was called.
Okay.
Which was the last new one, I think.
Yeah, for the Switch.
Yeah. I enjoyed that a lot. I know it's like very simple or whatever, but I mean these games are not meant to be like super crazy challenging. I enjoyed that, and I loved Luigi's Mansion 3 a whole lot until I got stuck at a certain point. But that game rules. I feel like I have to see what what came before it. So I'm definitely excited for both of these.
I agree. Well, we get hyped in June again because Summer Game Fest, Jeff Keighley has confirmed, is launching June 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So they'll do their big live event, I'm sure, followed by several days of reveals and trailers and deep dives and interviews. Like they'll treat it like
That's
a
Friday
3,
Yes.
June 7th is a Friday, really?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good call, Keely.
I will be working from home, so
you'll be Summer Games Fest,
quote unquote, working from home.
Working. Yes.
So I'm just saying, we can, just do some live reacts on this channel. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there.
For the episode that week, maybe.
Could be fun.
Hyper Light Breaker, guys. Let me bring it back down. Yes. Actually, no, I'm bringing it back up because it was delayed. So like, this is not a new delay. Like it got kind of indefinitely delayed into 2024 generically, I believe.
Yes.
And so now they're giving us at least a summer launch window for early access on Steam. So that's good. At least they're planning on getting it out on PC for starters, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But that game looks so cool. It looks really great.
Yeah. I'm so pumped, dude. I just love Solar Ash so much. And I've seen the gameplay of this. They just released new previews at all the publications again for this game, and it's just like the traversal. It's not as fast as Solar Ash. That game is meant to be hyperkinetic, but there's some of those elements of that of like gliding and like you have like a skateboard or some crap like that. I don't remember what it is, but there
are open world exploration for sure.
Just like Solar Ash was very, very particular about that, like of you exploring all these open areas. But this one just looks like more of that, but with the combat, hopefully not too different from even though it's a different kind of game. Perspective.
Like Drifter.
Yeah, hopefully it's not too different from Drifter in terms of how satisfying the combat was. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Cool going from that all the way to this though. Like the arc of that.
I mean, they're doing the Helldivers 2 thing of like going totally different direction.
Yeah.
Perspective change.
Yeah. Staying in the same universe still.
Yeah. And I like their early access. I mean, most of the time I like it. Like, I mean, it's a good strategy for a developer that's trying to iron out some things with because I think there's multiplayer, much like Drifter had multiplayer.
Yep. If it's a trusted developer, I think it's a great way to do it because they're legitimately going to get feedback and build up to a real launch. It'll happen. Yeah. There are a lot of examples. This would actually be interesting for a segment on the podcast at some point in the future to look at what are all the abandoned early access games out there that had momentum, and just because there's so many.
But Star Citizen's definitely not one of them, guys. That 1.0 is on the horizon.
Star Citizen, good call.
That game's on the horizon. Okay,
it absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a twinkle on the horizon. So I
just bought one that in all the comments, a lot of the negative reviews are because it's been abandoned. Like the last update I think was 2 years ago. This Giants Rising game. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like some of the negative reviews are about gameplay is, okay, not as good as it could be. But some of the bad reviews are because they're like, where's the developer? Like they've moved on to other games.
The Giants killed them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the
the Giants got mad at the propaganda
Giants Uprising, developer stopped working. I guess that's what it was. This is so funny to me. So we talked about Pal World. They've had, of course, insane success across PC and Xbox. And this is technically early access, I believe, for Pal World. I think it's early access still. So I've seen a couple of headlines around the Pal World stuff with Pocket Pair, the company that made it. One of them was that they basically said, we're too small of a dev to be ready to handle this much money. Like they pretty much said we've got too much money.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's a direct quote, but there was some kind of that, like them literally being like, we're not like, we need to grow in the right way to handle this correctly. And I think that's a smart way to look at it. But kind of connected to that, they are in talks to bring it to new platforms, which is like, really, you want to make more money? Because you're going to make more money if you do that. Is that what you want to do? And that they are open to the idea of acquisition if the right offer comes. And I'm just like, dude, I love that they're doing this. They're like, hey, we have this unexpected hit. This will probably never happen again. It's kind of like something going viral on social media.
It's kind of smart.
You gotta harness it while it's there. Okay, does anyone want to buy us right now? Like, does anybody like you could buy us if you want to. You could buy us.
It's very similar to how you would handle, I assume, because I'm kind of dumb with all this stuff, but stocks selling high and stuff like.
Oh yeah.
Where you're like, oh, we got to get rid of it now. We got to get rid of the money because there's no other chance to do this. Maybe we're too awful of a company to do this again or whatever.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we'll see if something there happens. But I know at the very least, they do want to bring it to other platforms, like PlayStation 5, of course, would be the no-brainer. I'm not sure it would ever run on Switch. Maybe a Switch 2, like when the game's in full release in 2025 or something. I could see it being a Switch 2 game, maybe. I just don't know that this engine would work, like the way that the game looks and runs. Maybe. I have no idea, man. I don't know how this technology works. Maybe it could run great. But anyway. All right, well, that's all the headlines that I've got. And I actually am going to keep my word to our buddy Kyle. We're not going to do Try Hard Tracker till his butt is in that seat on the show with us. He misses it every time we do it.
Watch him be like, you know what, that segment was okay. Like after it wraps up.
You know what? And it's not even that I think he'll like it. He might even kind of be like, whatever. But like he has said, and I've been like, I'm not doing this again until you can be there, because he's like, I miss every time we do this. It sounds like it'd be fun. So I'm like, all right.
It's very fun.
This is my pledge to you. So we are going to do a Try Hard Tracker upcoming, where I've got a review of over 370 outlets that have picked the game of the year, which, by the way, I did submit us and no one's responding to me. We're too small. Because the idea was that any outlet that has like a collection of people selecting a game of the year based, to represent their outlet. And so I submitted ours as like Final Fantasy 16.
Some of the names of the publications from last year.
I looked up some of them, and I don't think it's like us. I think it's this whoever's running this site that I was using. I just don't think they are responsive, because I looked up some of the things. Some of them are essentially like 2- and 3-man teams doing just what we're doing, even on a smaller scale. Some of them are shows that don't even exist anymore. They just picked their favorite game that year. You know what I mean? It's just
that's
a lot. Yeah, but they already got their foot in the door. But anyway, all that to say, we'll go over Game of the Year picks from a variety of outlets. And the reason we call it Try Hard Tracker is because there are times when a game is selected for these kind of things where it's like, that's a try-hard selection if I've ever seen one.
Sure.
Now, to be fair, a little spoiler, there's not as many egregious reaches this time around. Now, maybe if we wait till next week or the week after, a couple more will roll in, but don't go look. Don't go spoil it, Jeff. Just wait.
Oh.
Yeah. But
some
of them are a little bit head scratchy, but we've had some, like we looked at one from like Wordle was one. I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was like last year. Like that game had been 3 years old by that point. And
are you just counting it because New York Times just bought them? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you counting that?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Who even are you?
Anyway, so we'll dive back in. I got some other actual Try Hard Tracker things too, with more like news headlines, stuff like that. That stuff's pretty fun to do. Just to pick on people who are trying to get clicks and trying to troll their audience to get money off ads. So we're gonna make fun of them because they do that. So anyway,
I'm stoked.
So that is all that I've got for this week. I think we'll call it for this episode, unless you guys have something that I missed that you wanted to talk about.
I'm excited to talk about Roadhouse next week. That's what I'm excited about.
Wait, what?
Are you going to go see it?
The new Roadhouse movie? No, it's not coming to theaters. That was the whole hubbub. It's going to Amazon. Yeah.
Jeff, tell us about the Crow.
The
Crow. The trailer dropped. Huh?
Yeah.
What do you think about the trailer?
It felt very like early 2000s to me, which is interesting.
Yeah, it did. Not in really like a fun way.
So I'm glad to hear a little hesitation on like it looked great. Like,
I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like this looks amazing or anything.
Same. Yeah. I did, but as soon as I saw it, I was kind of like, I'm gonna forget about this as soon as
I was like, oh, this looks like one of the straight to DVD sequels that they made of The Crow.
Sure.
It looks kind of like that. I mean, I know that Skarsgård, whichever one he is,
he's a good
Bill,
actor.
I think. I know he's great. He's a good actor, and he's getting a lot of good meaty roles nowadays.
Violent shirts off roles. Yeah.
It's true.
Lord. It's true. The Joker, Juggaloker, as I call him.
Yeah, the Juggaloker.
Juggaloker. That whole
That's
like
true.
Jared Leto look that they applied to this iteration of The Crow is just a mistake. A big giant mistake. Some of the violent like stuff was like kind of rad. I'm a sucker for the
sword,
the John Wick stuff. So I mean,
that was cool.
They did some mutilation related things to kill other people. That was entertaining. It could be entertaining, but I'm not.
What the vibe actually reminded me of, and I'm not saying it's going to be of this quality, so don't misread me. Just the vibe, like you said, early 2000s, Dan. That's exactly where my mind went, and I pictured like the old Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, like that style of like the lighting and the streets and the I don't know, something about it. I was just kind of like, is there going to be Evanescence and Nickelback on this soundtrack?
I'll be there for Evanescence. I'm out if Nickelback.
I'm with you 100%.
If they can honor the spirit of the first movie was, dude, that at the end of the day, that movie was like a music video movie because the soundtrack was so good and stylized and stuff, and that style bled into the visuals.
It's so 90s,
as well.
Man. The whole thing was like,
I kind of want that again. Yeah. Like I want all this, I don't know, just screamo stuff. Like I just want stuff that fits the Crow. Yeah. I don't want if it's all like. I don't have anything against rap. They can use rap songs, obviously, but if it's all like hip hop and pop, I'll be like, "What is happening?" That is not
pop. T Swift in there or something like.
Yeah, exactly.
They might as well use that song that they used for the.
Was played right after his girlfriend dies. It's really weird.
They should use that "I Need a Hero" song they used for the Mario montage when he's training with Peach, and they should do that with the Crow.
I need a hero.
Yeah, that
one. But other than that, I mean, next week is obviously a big week for releases, so we're gonna have 3 big ones hitting the same day.
Okay, I think I've officially ruled out Princess Peach.
I'll buy it at some point for
My daughter said I think she said there was a demo, or one of her friends tried a demo.
There is a demo, yeah. I haven't played it.
Okay, I just gotta play the demo. She was just
kind of like, I don't know if I want to play it, and I was like, listen, hon, if you're not getting it, no one else in this house is interested in this game, so like, we're probably not gonna get it. So
I wasn't aware of the demo. I'm so bad at keeping up with Nintendo demos. So I'll have to try that to know for sure. Yeah.
The demo for that, there's a lot of hands-on impressions of both Dragon's Dogma 2 and Rise of the Ronin, which are awesome. Like everything about both those games has me really intrigued.
You know that a game is great when the thing that people are bitching about the most online are 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
Because everybody's complaining about that with Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm not really hearing anything else.
Gotham Knights, because that was a 4. We know that was a 4.
That was obviously a 4, and it was because of 30 frames, obviously. Because it knocks off like 3 stars.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a really exciting week. One last thing that I'll mention real quick. If you're a Valheim player like me still, I think I'm going to shift. I was doing some Valheim Let's Plays on our channel for a little bit there. I took a bit of a break because I was playing Banishers and other stuff and didn't have time to do that. But I might try this new adventure map that just got posted by 9byte. It's a mod essentially where you can go download it and then they've built a map. They've added in everything from NPCs to loot and weapons and like they fully modded Valheim to be like this, what they're describing as an RPG adventure. They're putting out what they call their beta version of this map. It's just a couple of guys who are friends who love building in Valheim and also have development skills, and they just decided let's just build a whole thing. So it's called Yeah, it's called the adventure map in Valheim. So you can download it for free. I'm going to give it a whirl.
Wow. I am very intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah,
the support for that game is unmatched. It really is.
It's so awesome.
From the community specifically. It's crazy.
Agreed. Yeah. Also, it's a little bit of like, the developers are doing a good job. They're a small team. I get it. But they had so much success. They could have grown the team. I think they could have had that game in 1.0 probably last year. So there's something about the speed that they're working that I'm not saying they should crunch or whatever. I'm not. Do whatever you want to do. But seeing something like this, apparently the idea was put together in November and they're launching it now. So it's kind of like, guys.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Hey, listen, the assets are already there, Tim, okay? The assets are already there.
You're right, Dan. That's a good point.
What you just said is true. Sorry. Obama came out to play for a hot minute. Sorry.
Thank you,
It's a good way to close it out. Thanks, Obama. Thanks for sending us off, buddy.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
God bless America.
Look.